What's up, everybody? Hi, Karen. Hi, Katie. Hey, Megan. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What's going on, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Keisha King Show. I'm your host, Keisha King Benton. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, hello. If you are a regular, hi, hello to my co-host. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Before we get started, why don't we go ahead and put some gold hearts in the chat for your girl? Yes, please put some gold hearts in the chat for me, for us, for the channel. You know, you know what I'm saying? Megan says, I'm just eating a muffin and dancing to the music. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. With all the heavy stuff that we talk about, you got to keep it a little light, dancing to the music and just eating your muffin and stuff. You know what I'm saying? It bees like that sometime. I understand. I really do. I understand. I do. My stuff gets all there we go. There's my colors. Let's see. I think I'm going to do that. Okay. So, so we've been deep diving. There's this new book that has come out by a man by the name of Dr. J.P. Foster. Dr. J.P. Foster. And I was trying to see if I had a picture of the book. I guess I don't. But it's called The Gospel and My Black Skin. Now, JP Foster, this is the man that is on the thumbnail. That is Dr. JP Foster. He is the pastor of Faith Central Church in Inglewood, California. It is like one of the largest, quote unquote, Black churches in California. He's a pretty young guy and he's jumping right on in. And Megan, so I couldn't resist. I had to get the book. I had to see what was in it because there is such a move going on right now. There is a move that the enemy is making. Since Trump got elected. Since Trump got elected, there has been a spirit of hate that has really moved across the country. And it has really shifted some people into some very dark places. People I know personally, when they talk about Trump, it's a spirit of just vitriol and hate for a man they don't even know. Okay. I mean, with the way that these people respond to Trump, you would think they know him way more than they do, but they don't. Yet and still they have this like hate and vitriol towards this man. And so as time has gone on, we had George Floyd, we had the Summer of Love, we've had all of these crazy, chaotic things happening in our country. And then there was the passing of our brother in Christ, Charlie Kirk. And after that, there was like another wave of wickedness that has gone out across the land. However, this time, in 2020, it kind of felt like, Lord, are you there? Do you see us? With all the craziness that was going on, just the crime, the high crime, the murder, like all of these things. And a lot of the rhetoric from the church was mixed, from those who are blood bought believers. They were not moved. But for those who were leaning into their identity politics, for those who have been, how shall we say, for those who are more concerned about race than the word of God, oh, they lost their minds. They lost their ever loving minds. And they have continued to go down this crazy rabbit hole of, we need the DEI, and we need we need this reconciliation, the reparations. We need something. We need something for being Black in America. Okay. Your welfare system, that your trillions of dollars that have gone into the Black community. No, 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 no. We need something else. Now, they don't exactly know what they need, but they want something that they cannot seem to define, because the thing that they want is actually not accomplishable. And because it's not accomplishable, if that's even a word, they have not formulated, they have reimagined. I'm going to use one of their words. They have reimagined the gospel in a whole new different way, in my opinion. What I see happening is activism in the pulpit, a new Black power theology that is emerging, but it's a little bit different. It's not the Black beret, leather jacket, sash, hardcore afro. But, they'll settle for a mini fro. A mini fro, we're just going to put the stripes here. We're not going to go with the whole militant motif. We're going to try to, we need to soften the edges on this a little bit. We need to kind of come in not so hot, because we're trying to expand what liberation theology, the social gospel. We want to expand that movement. We can't let it be just about Black identity. We got to expand it a little bit, because we got to include the trans and the LGBTQ and all this kind of stuff. But we need to soften the edges. That's the goal. We got to soften those edges so it's more palatable for, the people who really do love the Lord, the people who really are flat-footed but blood-bought believers. Well, for those of us who have been on to this, as Megan said, this something about this feels very Marxist. The gospel in my Black skin. Why does something about this doesn't feel quite like the gospel, even though they're using gospel-y like words and stuff? You just don't feel quite like the gospel. So we're gonna go through some clips. I got quite a few. But this man, he's just been making his rounds, and just the conversations that are being had around this, they're not naming it. It's your Blackness, basically, your Black identity being accepted and being I don't know, acknowledged within the church. Now, right there, we know that there's some flaws, but we'll get into that as we go along. Let's get into some of these clips. And of course, y'all know the clip that I won't. I don't even. What did I do? What did I do? I swear, I don't know what to do with myself sometimes. I really don't. Here, we're just gonna do this. We're just gonna do it like this. Hold on, everybody. Let's see. So,
name for it. I didn't have a church, but I noticed with the young adults ministry.
Wait a minute. That's not right. Why is it not? Oh. Got it. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So this is the I know you're gonna be like, Jude 3 again. Yes, they got a lot of content that we deal with. So yes, Jude 3 again. They saying a lot. They doing the most. So let's listen to what JP says.
And Jesus says in John 17,
why when the text
wicked people, choosing my words carefully, wicked people weaponized Christianity to harm us. If you read the Bible, God didn't do that. They chose of their own volition to use this faith to attack us. But if you read scripture and you understand history, when we got a hold of the whole Bible, we got to understand who God is, when we understand the ministry of Jesus. Jesus says in John chapter 4, I must go through Samaria. Jews never went through Samaria. They went around. The trip was 3 times more just to avoid Samaritans. Why? Because Jews and Samaritans didn't get along. Jesus goes through Samaria, meets a Samaritan woman at the well, ministers to her, and she becomes what we call an evangelist, right? And so it's incredible. It's important to see that. Paul says this in his epistles, right? If you read Galatians or you read Ephesians, Paul says that Christ has destroyed the wall of hostility, the wall of separation, the wall of division. Christ has destroyed it. There's no more Greek, no more Jew, no more slave, no more free man, no more male, no more female. We're all one in Christ. Colossians says we're all one in all. So when you read the ministry of Jesus, he brings us together in unity. And Jesus says in John 17, Lord, I pray that they be one. And this haunts me because the next word Jesus says, so that the world will believe that the Father sent the Son. And so now when we're divided, when we're not living out the truth of the gospel, we're not living out Christianity as it is in scripture, we're sending a message to the world. Like right now with Christian nationalism and everything that's going on and the division between the whites and the black Christians in our country, we're sending a message to the world. What is it? That the Father didn't send the Son. Lord, I pray that they be one so that the world will believe that the Father sent the Son. So when we're so divided like this, we're impacting the gospel. We're impacting people believing that the Father sent the Son. So to me, it's a bigger issue. But if they understand the ministry of Jesus, they understand that there's a difference between wickedness and evil from people who have free will and actually the ministry of Jesus.
That's powerful because it brings me back to 1 Peter 3:15, the pillar apologetic verse. And in 1 Peter 3.
Okay. So, that sounds like, yeah, there were some wicked people that use the Bible to twist scripture to or they used pieces of the Bible twisting scripture to make it seem like the Bible was condoning wicked things. Now the problem with that is it's not a problem acknowledging true things. Was this done? Absolutely. So in his book, he goes on, he makes this big to do about the slave Bible. He goes on and on and on and on. And yes, in Britain, the British territories, they use the actual slave Bible. He makes it sound like that this Bible was pushed here in America, which it really wasn't. They used more of the pulpit, the bully pulpit. They used the pulpit to speak the messages, not really that the slaves were reading from the book, but the slave masters in America were actually misquoting these, halfway scriptures, kind of like a lot of people still do today. And that's the thing. What they are trying to do is they're trying to take this moment of history, of American history, and they are trying to make America be this awful empire, this imperialist nation that just wouldn't let us be and just wanted to strip us of everything human and everything. And some did. Here's the thing though, it wasn't all white people. It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't all white people. All white people are not evil. And all black people aren't good. It's just not that way. So when we try to categorize people, put people in these classes and project a whole history upon these people, even today, now we have problems. And that's what we're seeing in this new subtle, this softened Black power movement. They've Christianized it up. But when you dig into that, what they're really saying, it's just not, they're just not accurate. If you disagree with what I'm saying, click that link and come on up and we can have a discussion. We can debate this out. Let's see. Dana said, if you vote for Democrats, you will be judged by God for all the evil Democrats stand for. For instance, God said, every hair on your head is numbered. I believe this. I believe that we're going to have to give an account for even who we vote for. I do. I think we're going to be, I'm not saying that who you vote for is going to send you to hell. I think it goes more about the actions and the things that you do and believe. So if your life is, being led by a lot of these things, which a lot of these people, their lives do, then yeah, they're going to have to answer for that, because the Democrats aren't quiet about what they believe, and they go directly against the Bible. It just is what it is. So agreed. Megan says it's just another way of creating division and opening up people to rhetoric and narratives once they have their emotions activated. That's it. Press that button. Press that emotional Black victim narrative button, and then, bot mode, straight bot mode. Katie says anything to keep people divided and angry. Absolutely. Who does that sound like? That sounds like Satan. That's not the Lord. Hey, Mario. Hello. Welcome. Let's see. Mario says, Megan, go ahead now. I'm at work, but wasn't missing Keisha. Oh, thank you. Y'all are so sweet. Y'all are my people. That's so nice. Thank you. Karen says Satan loves to cause division. Don't he though? I mean, when you break up heaven, when you cause disruption in heaven, yeah, you definitely you want to cause division. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so I had to get the book. So I got the book on Kindle because I just needed to see what he was saying, because there were so many questions. Like, it sounded really good on the surface when I'm listening to his interviews, because it's like a little bit of Christian mixed in. You know how they be, mixing and mashing. So I had to get the book. I had to see for myself. So I got the book. And I highlighted some portions that I think y'all might be interested in. And hey, listen, if you disagree, if you think that I am tripping, come on up and let's talk about it. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. Tell me, why we need to see Christianity through Blackness. Why is this okay? So, okay, let me see. How do I make it? Let me find my notes. I don't use Kindle very often, so how do I find my notes though? Okay, here we go. Okay, so he says, so this is page 27. I'm just going to read because I thought I had highlighted the passages, but we'll start here. It says, hold on, can y'all still see me? I don't know what y'all can see when I move stuff around. Okay, we'll keep like this. He says, but theological distortion doesn't stay confined to history books or archived sermons. Sorry, I made it bigger and then I lost my place. The systems built by these theologians left more than stained pages. They left spiritual residue. Even when the names are forgotten and the arguments abandoned, the frameworks they built echo in today's churches, which brings us to the present moment. He's talking about, the legacy basically of the legacy of the slave Bible and all these kinds of things. I'd like to say that all of this is behind us. Oh, this is what I highlighted. I'd like to say that this is all behind us. That the distortions used to justify slavery were buried with the Confederacy. That the curse of Ham, the edited Bibles, the sermons defending bondage were relics of a darker age. But you know as well as I do that the residue remains. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, self, the residue remained. I thought I was washed in the blood. I thought I was renewed in Christ. I thought he told me that he was going to make me anew, that he was doing a new thing in me. So why am I worried about what does a misrepresentation of the gospel, people who try to, who taught a different gospel, what does that have to do with me actually learning and practicing the real message of Christ? I'm just trying to understand. What does the residue of people who misrepresented the Bible, what does that have to do with me as a believer today doing what God tells me to do today? Can somebody please help me understand? If you disagree, help me understand, what does what happened in the past have to do with me today as a blood-bought believer? Because I really don't understand it. If I really truly believe in what God's telling me, then what residue? That residue doesn't belong to me. When I was washed in the blood, guess what went? The residue. If I don't know why you would have residue like today. I don't know why residue would be on you unless by choice. But let's just say you've gotten yourself into something and you need to be renewed. That comes off with the blood. The blood can handle, the blood of Jesus can handle that. Christ died he died for racism. That was on the cross too. It was. I promise you it was. He says, Black Christians still hear echoes in sermons that reduce racial inequality to, quote, individual responsibility, ignoring centuries of policy, violence, and exclusion. We can still hear the faint voice of the slave Bible in churches that preach submission, but stay silent on injustice. And we still feel the legacy of theological segregation in seminary syllabi that extol the church fathers while erasing their African identity, or if we're lucky, they treat African Christianity as a footnote not a foundation, because it is a footnote. Because the gospel is not about Africa. If Paul told the Jews it's neither Jew nor Greek nor male nor female nor slave nor free, if he told them it wasn't even about the Jews, then it sure enough ain't about Africa. If God told, if Jesus says, I don't want you to pay, I know these were Paul's words, but inspired by God. If God says, I don't want you to look at ethnicity, where you come from, the land that you come from, to be a part of this salvation, why would he then point us, if he told the Jews that, wouldn't that certainly apply to Africans too? It would. It absolutely would. Hey there, brethren Lee. Lee, I guess we'll call you. Hey, Brusky Bear. Why don't you come up, click the link. You don't have to put your face on the screen. Share your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and let's have a good discussion. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Broski, he says, last time I checked, the Bible was about accountability, not lack of accountability. That's right. But in his book, he says, Black Christians still hear echoes in sermons that reduce racial inequality to individual responsibility, because it is individual responsibility. Today, there are no laws on the books that say, because you're Black, you can't do something, or because you're white, you can. There's not, it just doesn't exist. So I don't care what nobody is saying in a pulpit. You can say whatever you want to say. It doesn't have any bearing on my personal individual life, because it's not a law. The only way it has effect on my personal individual life is if that inequality is a law. If it ain't a law, how is it affecting me? You're gonna have to help me to understand that. So let's see. He goes on to say, okay, so he's talking about George Floyd. So he says, so he took over, or he was voted in at his church, and the former senior pastor said, he's going to talk about him, but after George Floyd was murdered, something changed, or rather, something was revealed. Days passed, then weeks, and from the very people he'd walked, he's talking about his old pastor, he'd walked so closely with nothing. No phone call, no text, no public statement, no private support, just silence. Silencio. Deafening, devastating silence. He wasn't asking for grand gestures, just acknowledgement, just a moment of shared grief, but it never came. And I could see it all over his face, the weight of that betrayal. Not because he expected better. He really didn't expect better of these white people. He didn't really expect better. So were they really his friends? I don't know. We just don't mind me. I'm just asking questions. Not that he really expected better, but because he had hope that years of shared ministry meant something deeper. But when the world was crying out, his friends acted as if nothing happened, as if George Floyd's death was just another news story, as if our pain wasn't real. Okay. Oh, gosh. Part of me is angry at these people, these kind of these woke, you know, I love Jesus, and but I'm so entrenched in race that part of me feels bad for them, but part of me is like pissed at them at the same time. Okay, let me just put y'all on, just put y'all up on game real quick. The dude is from London. Just a little bit of he was born in London, and I just have the sneaky suspicion that the reason why he's just so ate all up about America's racism is because he's not really from here. And now that he's here, he wants, he feels compelled because he's got high pigment. He feels compelled to participate in all the other blacks, victimization, even though he has nothing to do with it. The dude is from London. You wouldn't know, though. He doesn't have an accent or anything like that, but he tells you that he's from London. He came here when he was 11 years old, and yeah, but he's not from here. I just think that I think that is in I just feel like that has something to do with why he is so, just this is our struggle, and he's just so about the struggle. He's got to fix it. I think because he feels like he wears the skin color, so he's got that complex. Like he doesn't want to seem outside of he doesn't want to seem like he's, outside of the pack. He wants to be down with the people. So he uses his language of our pain, and his pastor was just so, he was so broken up, which he might have been, but I mean, nobody that's kind of your business that you are having this problem with oppression that doesn't exist. Brinley says, God says there is the oppressed and oppressor. Who is the oppressor in America? Where does God say that? You're getting the Bible mixed up with the Communist Manifesto. The Bible does not say that. And if you want to debate, brethrenly, click the link. You don't have to show your face, and just say your piece. It's the same thing. I really don't understand. Somebody needs to get Marco Rubio on the phone to revoke his visa, because he should be investigated for being an agitator for the purpose of disrupting the values of a Christian nation. Okay. I wonder if he's got his papers. Is he legal? Are you legal, JP? Or are you coming over here? Are you pulling an Ilhan Omar? Okay, let me stop. I really do think this guy has a heart for God. I just think that he got all involved in the whole Black liberation thing, and now it is sit him on a tear. Bless his soul. So the book is the book is it's a trip, but he talks about, I don't know, I got a bunch of clips in here, so I'm just gonna play it and then we'll react.
Wondering, why did I write this book, The Gospel? And honestly, it wasn't just because I'm a pastor or a professor. Did I write this book, The Gospel in My Black Skin? Honestly, it wasn't just because I'm a pastor or a professor. It really was a personal struggle. Going through seminary, reading the Bible, seeing the geographical locations, never seeing anybody that was either Black or not Latin or European It made me ask a lot of questions. So when I began to do my studies and then I wrestled with my brothers, one of my brothers said, I don't believe, how in the world could you be a Christian? You know, it's the white man's religion. I don't understand how you could be a part of something that's enslaved our ancestors. He went through a whole thing. He was adamant that Christianity was no good for us. Then I had another brother who went to church, left the church, became atheist, then agnostic, and then by my personal life, acknowledged God. So when I'm writing this book, it's not just a random, oh, let me just write some historical, theological perspectives on things. It's literally wrestles and struggles I've had as a Black person and a Black Christian with what's happened with Christianity historically. But the great thing is the Lord has blessed me to study and allow me to really highlight some truths that you may not even be aware of. And so I walked away writing this book happy, literally, like liberated, because so many people don't know the history of Christianity. So many people don't know the depth of African roots and soil of Christianity. Yes, there were distortions. Yes, there were ugly moments that were just not just heretical, but ungodly. But there's so much rich history with Christianity before colonization. There's so many things that have taken place. I promise you read this book, you'll be liberated, you'll be empowered. And then to people who aren't Black, listen, the gospel of my Black skin deals with me being Black as a reader, me being Black as a Christian, but the rich history, the experience of Black people in this country, and the richness of Christianity, you will be blessed. I promise you. Read it from beginning to end, and I promise you, you'll walk away saying, wow, this was incredible.
Do you think you'll walk away and saying, wow, this was incredible? You won't. That's not what I got. Here's some other people that are on the same kick, that are, young and part of the, quote unquote, Black church.
Church is a theological response to white supremacist heresy, right? Because white supremacy is not just, it is terroristic, right? But it's also a heresy. And we have to understand.
When we are putting race, ethnicity, particularly race, when we're giving it so much weight, it is not only theologically not sound, it is also it's not scientific, because you are giving a definition to your pigment that extends beyond its function, its pigment. You are giving it a theological, a theological definition. You're trying to give your pigment a moral agency. It doesn't have moral agency. It doesn't think, it doesn't reason, it cannot form opinion. So therefore it cannot have moral agency. Whiteness, it was not the problem of people misrepresenting the Bible. Whiteness was not the, let me get full on screen. P.S. Whiteness was not the problem of slavery. Whiteness is not the problem of your failure if you are failing today and Black or person of color or immigrant, or pick your whatever word you want to use. Whiteness is not your problem. Blackness is not your problem of why you can't get to where you're going or why you're in the position you are. That is not your problem. The problem is sin. All of these things, slavery, death, LGBTQ, adultery, fornication, gossip, liars, people who don't want to take accountability. To know to do right and to do wrong is sin. You not taking accountability for your life, your actions that God gave you, that is sin. And that has nothing to do with whiteness. It has nothing to do with a color. It has everything to do with a thing called sin that was nailed to the cross. Yes, brethrenly, racism is demonic along with every other sin. But you and other people like you only want to look at race. oppressed or oppressor. That is, there are other sins, but they were all nailed to the cross. And if you call yourself a Bible believer, then it don't matter what sin that you were dealing with, not the nation. God did not say, I am dying for the nation. He died for the people in the nation. The people in the nation, their sin that they were going to have to pay a penalty for, that's what he died for. So you can have personal salvation, individual salvation. That's not what he's talking about in the book. He wants a unified reconciliation. He wants a nation to be, he wants blacks to have been died for. That's what it sounds like. And he wants whites to act. What it sounds like is he wants white people to have to actually take on the cost of sin, which is death. It's ridiculous. He goes on to say, he quotes Frederick Douglass in his book, and he's like, Frederick Douglass says that America, what is happening, and it's just like 1852. He's like, this is the speech he did about July 4th. He's like, what's happening across America right now is one of the worst atrocities in the world. And I was like, what else was going on in 1852? So let me just run down a little list of other things that were going on in 1852. So we can all understand that this was not the only thing happening. Chattel slavery was not the only thing happening around that time. So just a few things that were happening. The Arab Muslim, wait, can you guys see me? Okay. Oh gosh. Oh, wait, before I get into it, Lee Johnson says you are spiritually insane. If you disagree with me, this is a disagree smoke show, if you want to call it that. If you disagree, come on up. Click the link that's in the chat. It is pinned to the chat. Click that link and come on up. Lee number 2. Hello, Reginald Williams. Yes, Megan, pray. Yes, we are praying that someone comes up to have a good faith debate. We really want to have this discussion. Come on up and have this discussion. But okay, it looks like, I don't know, maybe you're another coward. Y'all just running your mouth. You're thumb thugging in the chat. You're not really prepared to actually defend what you say you believe. You just want to thumb thug, but y'all can keep on doing that. I'm not arguing with you in the chat. If you have something to say, you don't have to put your face on. Click the link in the description. Okay, Lee, if I don't know what I'm talking about, come and prove me wrong. It should be an easy wash. Come wash me. Come, embarrass me. Give me your best. Okay. Anyway, so it says Douglas's rhetoric, factual, but it doesn't hold as a literal global ranking. Slavery, as we all know, was widespread. But I just want to show you some of the other things that were going on while slavery was going on. The Arab Muslim slave trade had run for over 1,000 years by 1852, with estimates of millions, millions taken from Africa via the trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean routes. So for all of you out there who are like, oh, well, it was okay. It was all of the, it was the Europeans and the chattel slavery, and they did us so wrong. And first of all, millions of African slaves did not come to America. About 300 to 400,000 slaves came to America. Okay. When slavery ended, there was about 4 million slaves. So during that time that Frederick Douglass was speaking, he didn't have access to all of the history that we know. So maybe from his perspective, which he was a well-studied man, it would be hard for me to believe that he didn't know that some of these other things were going on. But, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But the Arab Muslim slave trade that was going on was far more brutal than American chattel slavery. Far more. And it was millions. Okay. Not the 400,000. Because think about this. If they were just killing the African slaves in America just by the tens of thousands, how did we come to be 4 million when slavery ended? How? That would not have happened. Okay. Also, so it says castration of males to create eunuchs was common, leading to horrific death rates. Harems and concubinage and brutal marches across deserts continued into the 19th century and beyond. Okay. Zanzibar was a major hub with tens of thousands passing through yearly. The Ottoman Empire, slavery persisted, including Circassian girls sold into harems amid genocidal displacements in the 1850s, with infanticides of mixed race children reported. Okay. Then there was Africa itself. The kingdoms and the raiders supplied slaves to both European and Arab traders with internal warfare, debt bondage, and practices far more inhumane. And they had some practices that were more humane also, but this was not just in Africa. It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just brutality, across the board. Let's see. Anyway, I just wanted to share, there's a ton more information out there about what was going on at this period in time, but my good friend, Mr. Teach'em Chuck Littleton, is here to help us unpack all of this. Oh, let's see. What am I doing? Okay, there we go. Hello, friend. How are you?
What's good? Is my volume a little better than last time, or I'm still low?
It's still a little low. Dang nabbit.
It ain't you, Keisha. It's me. I don't know.
Can you guys hear?
Like I said, I just, maybe I'll fiddle around with it or just lean in for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, you can sit back. You can sit back because I knew we got to see your face.
All right. All right. I'll just project.
Yeah, that's better. That is actually better. Okay, so what we're talking about, though, I am calling this new Black Power movement. And tell me, give me your critiques. I love feedback. I don't wear my heart on my sleeve. I can take it. So I'm like, this is like a new Black Power movement that they have softened. They're trying to it's not so Afro fist raised, coming in, kicking the door, waving the fofo. It ain't like that. It's more like, well, I've been to the academia and I've learned and studied, the atrocities. And so therefore, because of my Blackness, we have to annihilate all the systems, which is whiteness, because that's normative and blah, blah. It's more like that. It's still just as radical, but not in rhetoric.
Yeah, yeah. And you mean like with a lot of I guess leading black pastors and other you know members of the church, of the black church. Is that what you
Yeah,
mean when
so
you say
these
that?
these black theologians
Yeah.
have taken on, they're like James Cone, so they're
Hmm.
calling themselves Christians, they are theologians, but they're not they're not his, their rhetoric is not like his. It's a lot more he's not, they're not like Jesus was black. They're not like that. They're
Yeah.
like, we need to accept all races,
Mm-hmm.
all, but our blackness still needs to be paid attention to, and whiteness is still a problem, don't you forget it, because we're theologians and what we say matters.
Yeah.
Like
And,
that.
yeah, and they think it's their responsibility or a burden, right,
Hmm.
to show the world, particularly the white man, the white man, how
Hmm.
to, music soul child style, to teach them how to love, essentially.
Yes, oh
Um,
my god, that's so good, that's
yeah,
it.
because they,
Yes,
yeah,
they're like music soul childing love,
mhm,
the word love. And they're like, yeah, we're just, it's like conscious, but
yeah,
we're gonna like remix it with some Jesus.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because they
Dang,
have,
that's spot
yeah,
on.
that's when you like I said, when you read the literature of liberation theology, I mean that's what they explicitly say. Gutierrez himself says in his own work that God is on the side of the poor. God shows preferential treatment to the poor.
Yes.
Okay, and in his work, a theology of liberation, he poses the question rhetorically, or not rhetorically, but he poses the question to himself. He goes on to answer the question, which is why, right? Why is God partial to the so-called oppressed? And he says, well, he's simple. He says, because God is God, right? And in other words, I mean, he believes that he has God's uh will, his plan for humanity. He believes he has it down so cold
Mm-hmm.
that it isn't to be it can't be um cross-examined, or it's indisputable. Is it indisputable or undisputable? Indisputable.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be questioned.
And it's all based on race.
Yeah, and it's because God, God said it. I mean, he gives a whole bunch of lays out a bunch of information, or says a bunch of things that he never proves. But because blacks occupy this very unique position, it is their responsibility as the group of folk, particularly here in the United States, that have been on the short end of the stick historically. Right? So therefore, it has become their burden, and we live in this culture, this environment. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine today, actually, and he sent me something. It was something that clown Umar, so-called Dr. Umar Johnson, aka Jermaine Shoemake, posted on his Instagram channel, and there was a young lady. And she was going on and on about how blacks should not be procreating with white people. Okay, and she says that, I mean, she says a bunch of things. Goes into the typical stuff that you would imagine that would come from someone who would say such a thing. And she was more light skinned than I. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I said, wow, she wants to be black so badly. Like, she really wants to be black.
Mm.
And I just assumed that, just judging by her complexion, that she probably had a white ancestor in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out that later on, toward the end of the video, I could send it to you, Keisha, probably after the show, or maybe during the show. And she said that she ends up disclosing in her rant that she herself is biracial. Now, just imagine now what kind of a sickness is this? Now, think about this for a second. Here's this biracial young lady, right? She has the Pan African flag over her shoulder behind her. I think she may have had a photograph of Malcolm X on the other side of the wall. I can't remember, but I do remember seeing the red, black, and green flag. And here's this biracial woman, and she's saying that blacks should stop procreating with white people. Now here she is, a soul incarnate, right? Someone with conscience and a will to act, someone who can grab a smart device and press a button, right, and spew, her diarrhea of foulness out into the world for everyone to
Mhm.
see, right? Because two individuals decided to do the very thing that she's discouraging, the very thing that has provided her with the opportunity to say that that very thing shouldn't be done, which is, well, she has life, right? So it's weird. And
Mm.
then somebody asked me, they said, why is it always the light skinned folk, the Colin
The
Kaepernick,
light brights and almost white.
right? Why do they tend to be the ones that are so militant? You know, it reminds me of this scene in this famous black exploitation era flick called The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Mm-hmm.
I have ever seen that film. And there's well, I won't go into the plot of that film, but there's a point when the main character, the lead guy, it's about blacks uh sparking a revolution in America through urban guerrilla warfare, right? It's just this whole kind of Marxist softcore pornography. And one of his co-conspirators, one of his top guys in his circle, the guy leading this revolution, is this high, he's like high yellow guy, he dang near look white.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the film, he keeps antagonizing him and antagonizing, saying, "Man, brother, you ain't really down, man. You ain't really for the revolution and all this stuff." And at one point, he finally just snaps on the guy. And there's a famous moment in that film, the spook who sat by the door, where the guy just goes, he says, I was born black, I live black, and I'm probably gonna die, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black, because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head. And so the guy sits back and he smiles and he said, "Now that's what I'm talking about." Because it was almost like he was trying to pull it out of him. I want to
Wow.
see that passion. I want to see that
Mm.
fire and that fury. I want to see it come out of you, because I guess you have to exercise that mulatto demon from your genetics. And it's funny because we live in this atmosphere of it, it kind of reminds me of our old buddy Patty Cake Patrick that you
Oh
spoke of.
yes, good old Patty Cake. And shout out to K Dub. What's up, K Dub?
And it's interesting with that, this kind of white guilt, right? This white liberal syndrome. And it's funny, it's almost like self-preservation and action, right? Because psychologically, I guess uh the body, I mean, in all of its form, whether it be physical, psychological, and so on, it's kind of a disassociated or disassociative phenomena where people psychically or psychologically separate themselves from harsh memories, or just things that make them feel bad, right? And when whites hear that so much, right, there's this fight or flight. You either fight back against such an allegation or you surrender to it. And then next thing you know, you use blacks as almost like sort of like black people sort of become your idol in this twisted way, because you think by way of putting on about how much you sympathize with their plight, that will in a way bring you closer to God, because there's this inherent feeling within all human beings. I don't care if you're atheist or not, we all know that we don't measure up.
Mm.
You don't measure up to the this ultimate, this ideal sense of what we think good is, right?
Right.
Christians, we refer to that as God.
Yeah.
And we're all seeking redemption in some way. And so you have to be a victim as a black person if you're a white person stricken with white guilt, because since their status as victims is your gateway toward redemption, if you can show God that you're worthy of his love because you have helped them. But see, with biracial people, it's a bit different. And this is why a lot of them tend to be so radical and over the top, because they have a choice. They have a door. They can pick door 1 or they can pick door 2. A lot of them aren't going to surrender to the white guilt they hear in popular culture, political media, the educational system, so on and so forth. They'll run away from that. Like that wasn't me. You know what I mean? You mean to tell me I'm a bad person? I was born white, and so I'm guilty for having been, being simple by simply being born white, and I myself, or perhaps my ancestors, did something to someone or some group of people at one point in time. Don't put that on me. They don't want that.
They don't want that.
They can't run away from the fact that they are white, partially, I guess. And so they run away from that and they run to the opposite pole. They go to the other extreme. But they don't want to deal with the guilt, but they'll deal with the pride that comes along with that, right? It's the leverage that they get that comes along with that. So they feed into that more because they don't quite feel like they measure up to what it means to be Black. So I have to put on even more so to solidify my bona fides, because I have to run away from this guilt.
Man, did you? I don't know if you got to see, but the guy who wrote this book, "The Gospel in My Black Skin," Reverend Dr. J.P. Foster.
Right.
This dude right here, he's from London, and I was like, this is just too rich. Like, of course you are. And then I'm looking at his picture with his red, black, and green armbands. He militant. He militant, but he on the low with his militancy. He got the little afro. He got the little stripes. He don't want to be straight up like this. So he's softening the edges. But you're from London. You came in when you were like 11. You really ain't got nothing to do. Like, you don't have anything to do with this. But I'm going to read for you just this portion of his book that he talks about. His pastor is confronting the George Floyd moment. And how he was so ate up. He was so broken up. He said, "Bishop Kenneth Ulmer, my spiritual father and one of the most faithful leaders I've ever known, had spent decades building bridges across racial lines. He ministered along white pastors, shared conference stages, and collaborated on community projects that affected thousands. He didn't just preach unity, he lived it. But after George Floyd was murdered, something changed, or rather, something was revealed. Days passed, then weeks, and the very people he'd walked so closely with, nothing, no phone call, no text, no public statement, no private support, just silence. Deafening, devastating silence. He wasn't asking for grand gestures, just acknowledgement. Just a moment of shared grief, but it never came. And I could see it all over his face, the weight of the betrayal, not just because he expected better. First of all, that's such a low down and dirty sneak diss. Not because he expected better, but because he had hoped that years of shared ministry meant something deeper. But when the world was crying out, his friends acted as if nothing happened, as if Floyd's death was just another news story, as if our pain wasn't real. Watching him sit with that silence marked me. It marked me, Chuck. It reminded me that no matter how much we serve, how faithfully we lead, or how deeply we invest in reconciliations, there are moments when being Black in white Christian spaces feels like shouting into the wind. You can be respected, even admired, but when the cries of your community go unheard, you start to wonder, do they see me or just what I do for them? I wanted to say, boy, if you don't get your London behind up out of here, what are you talking about? when being black in white Christian spaces feels like shouting into the wind, who are you trying to impress? The white guy or Jesus? Because I'm confused on who you think your God is. I don't understand none of this. I really don't, especially with him being from London. I don't understand none of this, Chuck. Help me understand, what is the man talking about?
What was he expect? Well, first of all, London is I don't know what people think of typically when they think of London. London's urban poor. Uh, Majority of them are white, and they suffer from a lot of the same afflictions, social pathologies that affect urban blacks here in the United States, and it's been the case in London
Wait,
for a very long time.
just a side note. Do you know that a report recently came out that if London, if Britain was a country in America, it would be the poorest. It would be lower than Mississippi.
Yeah.
So they ain't doing too good over there. We're actually doing better than where he's from. By the grace of God, he ain't even over there, but he's still complaining. See, I don't like stuff like this. I'm ready to ship your behind back.
I don't like it either. I don't like it either. Talking down to my country. I guess he wants Britain to be, or the United States to be more like Great Britain.
He doesn't get it. He doesn't even talk about him being from London very much. I just picked it up in an interview that I saw him with Tim Ross, but that's the only time I've heard him talk about it. And I was like, oh, London, really? That's interesting. You got a lot of hate for somebody whose ancestors they're not even from here.
Right. And like I said, London, as far as like with family dissolution, breakdown, fathers not raising their children, drug addiction, gang warfare, violence, relative poverty. These are all things that affect predominantly white communities in London and in other parts of the world as well. I mean, I hate to use something as like somewhat trivial as pop culture, but sometimes pop culture can be ahead of the curve for better or worse, and it kind of gives us an insight into where society is going. Like I said, for better or for worse, and I mean that's what the entire. I mean, for during the 60s and the 70s. I know we're not here to talk about London, but it's not that I know a ton about London, but I would just
and because I really want you to focus on his critique of what happened to him. Yeah.
I mean, what was he expecting? What was he expecting? I just think it's just crazy how that whole thing works out when he's talking about black skin, and again, he'll be the first person to probably tell you about blacks and their treatment and their plight, the world over. As you mentioned, Keisha, with the red, black, and green armband. So of course the quote unquote black experience is the same for every melanated person all over the world, obviously, right? I mean,
right, of course.
It just makes perfect sense, right? All the while, whites.
But we're not a monolith.
We're monolith, right? But when I look like I said, I think about a place like London, and there are white people suffering in poor urban London, like I said, which is what actually gave birth to the punk rock movement back in the 70s. But I digress. But I really don't know what the heck this guy is even. I mean, what does he want? Did he want someone to come and give a hug and say, "I'm sorry for what happened to"?
I mean, look at what he says. He says,
Floyd,
do they see me, or this is the last sentence in the paragraph, do they see me or just what I do for them? First of all, I'm like, what the heck are you doing for them? But why are you trying to be, why is it the goal to be seen by man anyway? Like, that's my question. Like, as a pastor, you are bringing, because he's running one of the largest churches in California, black churches in California with a massively growing young. There are young people being indoctrinated by this man. And like, who are you pointing them to?
Yeah.
The white man or Jesus?
Yeah. Yep. It's the same. It's the same political theology that they've been peddling for a long time. He just isn't as fiery as say someone like a Jeremiah Wright or James Cone. He's, just a little bit more palatable, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
he's the same. I was wondering too, as I was looking at the excerpt from the book, I was just curious as to why he may have capitalized black but didn't capitalize the word white. I wonder why
It's
he did
all
that.
throughout his book like that.
Hmm.
I don't know what, like,
I wonder why he did that. I'm serious. It wasn't unintentional. I could tell you that. It wasn't
no,
for the
it's
sake of it.
intentional because it's in the whole book is like that.
Yeah, he's doing that for a reason. I
Yeah,
just
I
think.
don't know what that's about.
Right, and oftentimes, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, and the audience knows this as well. It's a lot of times too. It's just classic projection with a lot of these black supremacists. See, with all this talk about black white supremacy and all this other craziness, I mean, they're really just black supremacists in a poor disguise. And so that's why I really like the
Mhm.
conversation you had with what was it? Moonlight is what he Moonlit is what his
Moonlight, yeah.
handle
Hmm.
was. When he said that, I think he said his brother asked him, why do you think Trump is racist? And he said he kind of had this epiphany. He said, well, he's white, and so he kind of had this realization. Now, wait a minute, I'm calling Trump a racist, but the only reason why I am assuming that he is a racist is because he's white, obviously. And if a white person
Hmm.
does something or says something that hurts my feelings, well, what else can it be? They're going to look and say, wait a minute, well, then I'm the one who's really being, prejudiced and stereotypical, not the object, not this person. I'm doing that,
Yes.
and so that's what a lot of these people are doing. They are haters, and let me just say to the audience, I don't know how many white viewers we have in the audience, but let me just give you guys an. And I don't say this to get you to be to be like in a reactionary position where you kind of go, okay, well, if that's how they feel, then screw them, and then it kind of
Hmm.
goes into this sort of dialectical spiral. But I'm here to tell you, if you only knew the way most the thing, and it's funny because in this era of quote unquote cancellation and all this and that, and political correctness has really gotten so out of control. uh the things that black folks say, right? And especially when there are no white, there are no peering eyes, no white peering eye. I'm telling you, you all have no idea the amount of hatred and racism and bigotry due to decades upon decades of programming and brainwashing and propaganda. The same white person that was smiling in your, I mean, the same black person that was smiling in your face, the same black person you work with across, look at the cubicle every morning and you wave and they wave back. You may not be the best of friends with them, but they're perfectly fine and decent and cordial. You have no idea when they're on the telephone with their buddies or something and whatever, and they feel as though they have the freedom to say what they want to say. My oh my, things they say about white folk, it will make you blush.
Hmm.
And they'll
Seriously.
never say it to your face. I
No.
promise you.
And it's this
What I'm gonna
thing
say.
where it feels that they have complete agency to say it, bandwidth to say it, simply because they're black.
Yeah.
Let me
And before you I was about to read something. I wanted to make one quick remark on something you said yesterday about
mhm.
or the day before Monday about if black folks were to wake up and they would be like Freaky Friday, they would be switching. They would wake up
Yeah.
violent. I mean, let me tell you something. They would probably, and I think your response was they would probably find a way to kind of still make themselves victims.
Uh-huh.
Here was my response when I heard that and you were talking about that. The I think it was Emil Durkheim. Emil Durkheim. Those of you, if you studied sociology, Emil Durkheim is a name you probably come across in your sociology 101 course if you took an intro to sociology course in undergrad. And I think it was Emil Durkheim who did the famous sociological study on suicide. And this was one of the first studies that really helped to create sociology as a discipline. It's not a very old discipline. It's fairly new. And so, he was doing a study trying to figure out, okay, what leads a person to want to take their own life. Okay. And what most psychologists, sociologists, and social psychologists, that's a totally different thing, kind of combine those two disciplines to make something entirely new. But most social psychologists link, of course, and this you don't have to be a scholar to put two and two together here, because it just kind of makes sense on its face. That is, people who have a higher sense of self-esteem, people who think very highly of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they don't tend to take their own lives. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what we see as far as, and you should know where this is going, what we
Um.
see with suicide data
Mm-hmm.
is that whites on average are far more likely to commit suicide than a black person. Okay. Now we can theorize as to why that may be so, but if you look at one of the more commonly circulated theories within academic circles, one can plausibly suggest or justifiably suggest that blacks have a very high sense of, they have a very elevated sense of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder where that comes from. Why do black folks think so highly of
I
themselves?
mean, James Colton told him that
Uh,
you basically God.
all of this talk about representation and everything is black, all blacks and minorities being pushed to the forefront. You would think that this the country wouldn't function without those wonderful, brilliant black minds that's making the whole thing go, which is a complete and utter farce. It's just not true,
Mm,
right? And for black folks running around saying that they're so oppressed and this and that and is so beaten down. But I'm just saying that if you were in fact that person, then why do you have such high self-esteem? Why are you so detached from reality?
mm,
Why does your sense of self, why
hmm.
is it so incongruent with your actual achievement? Where are you getting all this self-esteem from? And that's true as a whole, not just with just to broaden it out a bit. Americans in general have very, very, very high self-esteem. One of the things right here,
Yes.
Keisha, one of the things that's often made reference to, one of the studies, it talks about American children in their academic achievement, right? They're
Mhm.
being outpaced by Asians, not Asian Americans, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about Japanese, Chinese, South Koreans, and so on,
Mm-hmm.
and say like math, engineering, technology, engineering, and these things. And and they've done these tests. They have these standardized tests. American students take the same test as the agent that the Japanese, for example, student takes. And prior to the outcome, prior to the test itself having taken place, they poll the students and ask them, "How good do you think you are in math? Or how much do you like math?" Right? More Americans believe that they're good at math, and more American students responded that they enjoy math and that they're good at math, than versus the Japanese students who said that they hate math, they don't like doing it,
Mm.
right? They don't particularly consider themselves to be all that good at it, and they far outpaced the American students who like it and think they're good at it,
Yes.
but they're not as good as our.
By the way, Timothy, I turned my mic down. I hope that's more in line with Chuck's mic.
Sorry.
But when they asked, I think black women, they were asking black women too, compared to white women, like who had more self-esteem. And black women had a way higher self-esteem than white women. And so it's like, well, where is this? Like, we're not seeing the through line of, oh, I'm so downtrodden and oppressed and I can't do anything. It's
Listen,
not coming out in how you all feel just
no,
personally about
the,
yourself.
the
So, like,
black folks love it.
something's afoot. The
Yeah,
math
black.
ain't mathing,
Yeah,
literally.
because it does not compute to actual achievement. And black folks, for all of the victim stuff that they push, they love it. They love it because they gain currency from it.
Mm,
Not just simply financial currency, but they enjoy political currency. They enjoy social currency from it. It's nothing that they love more than to just get into any sort of environment and throw their weight around and think they can bully and intimidate everyone around them, because they're carrying the burden of being an oppressed minority around. And
mhm.
so they wouldn't want to trade that in. They love it. Oh, black folk, they love it.
Love it.
They love it. There's nothing they love more than to beat you over the head with the fact that they're black and you're not.
That is so true. I'm trying to find. Let's see. I'm gonna play. Let me just tell everybody. Hi, Paul. And did I say hi to DT? Hi, DT. Glenn, man. Hello, hello. Good to see you guys. Um, and E. Debnam and Eric. What's up? So I just want to remind you, if you want to come up and you have a disagreement, you can come up and give us your disagreement. Tell us why you disagree with us on Blackness and the Bible. As usual, we had people just going off in the comments, but they don't want to come up. They don't want that Smith Oak. So I wanted to play. I wasn't able to cut this to chop up this video and get clips. So I'm gonna skip around to some parts. So this is when Foster was on with Tim Ross. Who do you know who Tim Ross is? He's a pastor, or he was a
I'm about
pastor
to say,
now.
he's dead, right? He's dead, right?
No, he's not dead.
Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of-
Not well, maybe when you see him.
Okay. I'm thinking of someone else.
Okay, so let's see. Which one is this? Okay, yeah, that's Tim. That's Tim Ross.
Okay.
Okay, but let's.
I was
I
thinking- I was
might
thinking-
skip
I was- I
around,
was-
but
I was thinking of Tim Keller. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. But this is so he's going to be talking about his book and how it came to be. I'm playing this because these are two you might not know their names, but they are providing a lot of content and commentary in the quote unquote Black Christian space. So we need to listen to what they're saying, because when they say things, it goes out into all the other churches, people like them. So here's let's take a look.
Asking different questions about the faith. And at the time, I didn't really have a name for it. I didn't have a, I didn't really have a, what is this? But there's a lot of questioning about their faith and Christianity, and like what's going on in our nation with Christianity. Like, we don't all think the same way.
For sure.
Some stuff, this is getting crazy. So
Right.
I noticed Black men in particular questioning and walking away from the church. Some people being disillusioned by Christianity. Like, what is going on in our nation with Christianity? What I learned later in during COVID around 2020, that actually came out with a name for it called the Black Exodus.
Okay.
So the Black Exodus is Barna and Pew Review have done studies since that time on what they call a group called nuns, which means non-religious affiliation.
Correct.
Right? So the group of nuns, Blacks in America were normally the least to be non-religious affiliation. Since 2000, from 2016 to now, we have grown to the leading group of non-religious affiliation.
This is very interesting.
Now, if you read the data, some of it's saying that when they're not walking away specifically from Jesus, they're walking away from the church, and they're walking away from what's being done in his name. And so when I started realizing that, and some of the questions people had about the faith, I tried that this book is a burden. It's a response to the burden of the counseling sessions I had, the conversations I had on university settings, the research I've seen happening in churches where people are saying, "Look, man, what is this? What does it mean to be Christian? Why is it that the church doesn't speak up or stand for certain issues? why is it that it's starting to feel like it did in the 50s and 60s, and why it's starting to feel like the younger generation, is this the white man's religion? Was this religion given to me? Is this religion oppressing me? And so that the book is a response to that. The gospel and my black skin intentionally says I'm writing to a black believer. I can write to a black believer. And that's the intention behind the title is the gospel of my black skin, and it deals with the past so we can reclaim the future. So I think that's the premise behind it. Because I've seen so many people walk away, have questions, but then when I talk to them, like I've been to some university settings with a room full of just black men, and did Q&A after speaking for like an hour and 45 minutes, and they literally come to the church, and so I'm explaining that to them.
Whoops.
Interesting.
So that I get that view, but I think it's a narrow view of history.
Yeah, because very myopic.
Very narrow view of history. And if you view history that way, then it makes sense why you would have this, no, I don't want to be a Christian. Like, it was given to us. Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself what really happened. So Christianity was before colonization and colonialism and all that. It was in Africa before Europe and America.
Correct.
And so I'm explaining that to them. So part of it's just historical.
Right.
When you widen the historical picture and you have facts and you know that agree with it, it changed. That's the first thing that changed it. The second is when you look at this narrow view of history, they use Christianity against us. Now, I'll say yes and no.
Yes.
And
two things can be true.
And I'll say the reason why I say that is because it was done under the umbrella of Christianity, but it wasn't the gospel.
Not at all. Yes.
And so I think once I explained to them the slave Bible, and that this Bible that you are holding is not the Bible that was used to oppress us.
Correct.
All right. It was a pamphlet.
Right. Exactly.
90% of the Old Testament was stripped out. Exodus was missing. Exodus.
That is the most egregious, offensive thing you could ever do to Jewish history.
Exodus is missing. 50% of the New Testament is missing. So the scriptures that are in the slave Bible are only scriptures that subjugate.
Correct.
Right? Yep. And so I think when they're looking at this, when I'm saying, no, that Bible that you're holding is not what was used to subjugate us.
Absolutely.
90% of the Old Testament was missing. Almost 50% of the New Testament was missing. And they literally got together and they picked cherry picked.
That's right.
They picked which scriptures they could use. They even have historical debates where they didn't want to they had a debate on, can we baptize black people? If we baptize them, does that mean they're free? This is how sick it was. This is how distorted it was. If we baptize them, that means they're free. Why? The Imago Dei.
That's right. You're in the image.
If I baptize you, I have to recognize you as a whole person.
That's right.
But they stripped us of the image of God.
That's right.
In order to subjugate it. So it's
I'm just sorry. If I'm your slave master, if I baptize you, that's not gonna make me automatically like I'm already. First of all, I already know that you're a human being. You know, the whole thing of like, oh, I'm not gonna look at you as a human being. It's only because of, you know, every man is, you know, our Constitution, but they knew that they were human beings. It's like they try to force everything and everybody and every slave master into like this one little thing. It just wasn't like that. And the other thing is the slave Bible. He calls it a pamphlet. I'm not saying that that it wasn't used to distort the Bible. It was, but it wasn't a pamphlet. I just want to show y'all. It was it was almost 500 to 700 pages. So I don't know why he keeps saying that. Oh, it was just like a little church fan. It was like a pamphlet. No, it wasn't. It was a 500 to 700 page book. Yes, huge portions were missing, but I just want to correct the record just for historical sake that it just kind of disqualifies him a bit because he's not being honest about what actually like the slave Bible was. But it was like a 500 to 700 page book, and it was not disseminated in the United States of America. It was mostly in the British Indies, the Caribbean. The slave masters here mostly proselytizes from the pulpit, not passing out slave Bibles. Just a little historical correction. Chuck, you got anything on this or on this or anything he said up until now?
Yeah, like I said before, when you take this political theology, what you have to do is you have to blend, you have to incorporate other social sciences, and when you do that, if you don't know, if your history is wrong, your sociological theories, your understanding of economics, if all of these things are wrong, then what does that do to your theology? What he's doing is when he talks about there's a difference, there's a split between, and when you start talking about these kind, it gets very very academic and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Uh, but on a simple level, there are two branches of theological thought battling. There's theologians going back and forth about this, probably since around the early 20th century. Like I said, theology wedded itself to the progressive era, the I guess the neoliberalism of the
Mhm.
early 20th century. And out of that came this thing, this mutation we call political theology. As a matter of fact, the person who came up with the theory, Keisha, is a German, surprise, surprise, a German
Right.
philosopher slash a theologian, by the name of Johann Baptiste Metz. That's Johann with two N's, Johann Baptist Metz, Metz. He is the one who coined this concept of political theology. And this was, in his mind, a proper kind of theology versus what traditionalists would refer to as a transcendental theology. Okay, because he believed that religion and spirituality had become too much of a private matter, right? Too much of a one-on-one type affair,
Mm,
meaning that you yourself, you commit, you're guilty, you're guilty of improper act, you're guilty of committing acts that transgress against a holy God, right? That's what your sin is, right?
mm.
uh but political theology says something completely different, right? It embraces this idea of, a lot of what they do is they take a lot of Christian concepts and they corrupt them for their own political purposes.
Right.
They talk about compassion and solidarity and all these things, and what they're doing is they're taking words like that, they're taking concepts like that, and they're using those words, and they're using those words instead of words like uh like like communism, or like socialism. Because if you actually believed in the kind of universal brotherhood, or like, just to speak of Matthew 25, for example, when it talks about what have you done for the least of them, you do for me.
Do unto me, yeah.
So you have an obligation to help the oppressed and the marginalized and blah blah blah. Well, then that begs another question. Well, who are these oppressed peoples, these marginalized peoples? Because we have to flesh that out first, because people to whom you claim are oppressed may not actually be oppressed, or at the very least, they may not be oppressed by someone else, because sometimes a person's marginalization is a result of their own actions, because they choose to do things that set them apart from everyone else for
Mm-hmm.
reasons. But that's a totally separate question. But that's where the bifurcation comes in: political theology versus transcendental theology. Even if you were to pull up Johann Metz, you'd probably get a brief summary, or if you would look up political theology, Johann Metz, you'll probably get a brief description of the theory that he helped to popularize. So that's like another a building block in the structure that is liberation theology. And so what he does is, right, he links he links the black person that he's trying to convince that Christianity is not the white man's religion or whatever, or try to convince them why they should be Christian.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to play on their I guess
Racial sensitivities. Yeah.
absolutely racial sensitivities by talking about Africa and colonization.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first things first, let's just call a spade and acknowledge the elephant in the room. And I don't say this to shock anyone. I don't say this to get people upset. Maybe this may spark someone to click the link and come up and have a conversation with you. But let me say this once and for all. Colonization, ladies and gentlemen, was a good thing.
Dun
Colonization,
dun dun.
colonization was a net positive for the world.
How is that, Chuck? How? It was white people. They were, okay. So what they say is, if you were on indigenous land and they came over and they took your stuff and you were left holding a Bible and they were left holding the land, you were colonized and it's been bad for you and you're on stolen land.
No, see, there's so that's probably another show, probably another topic. We can talk about it a little bit, try to shoehorn it in, but that's a very, very, very interesting conversation. There's a book, I forgot the author. There's a famous book that I would suggest that I would recommend people go read if you want to challenge me on that. But it's called The Case for Colonization. Also, there's another scholar. I mean, there's a lot of books out there about the benefits that were brought about by colonization, and particularly the British Empire and what the British Empire did for the world. You see, this guy, you know, he speaks about colonization in this blanket way, as if colonization was so complex, and you had different uh different empires or budding empires from different parts of Europe that were involved in the colonial sweepstakes. It wasn't just colonization emanating from one thing. Okay, Great Britain had colonies, for example, and then France had colonies, right? You had the American Revolution that was revolting against King George for independence, while at the same time, or shortly thereafter, you had a revolution within France proper, within the core zone of the empire, to change their structure from within. Okay, so you had different parts of the world, right? You had the Spanish speaking world, the Catholic world versus the Protestant world, and so on and so forth. And fast forward to today, we are still, uh, within the context of the English speaking world, we see the world in a way that is unique and in subtle ways, but meaningful at the same time, depending on what we're talking about. We see it in ways that are subtly different from our Italian speaking counterparts or from our French or Spanish speaking counterparts. So when you're talking about colonization, you have to be very specific, because are you talking about Spanish colonization, which was something specific? Are you talking about British colonization, which was something specific? Are you talking about French colonization? And mind you, all of this is happening, European nation states slash empires are simultaneously at different stages throughout history warring with each other. Again, so there was, especially, I mean, we all are familiar with the centuries old rivalry between England, right, Protestant England, and Catholic France. This has been going on for centuries, which is a huge part of the reason why we kind of embrace these ideas of separation of church and state,
Mm-hmm.
because of the religious wars that had racked Europe for so long. And we said
Right.
that we have to make this an individual issue, a citizen issue, and not so much a political issue. But anyway, I don't want to change the subject. But again, he's
But
talking
I do
about.
want to say just a quick nugget on that, on the point that you're making is, from what I'm hearing you say, a part of what you're saying is, even in America, the colonization of America, when you see, for instance, jazz or cultural things that are amongst quote unquote that started from Black people. Yeah, there is I believe that there is a part that comes, the drum and all of that, but it wouldn't be what it is if it not for America. America makes whatever other culture, whatever other thing, it makes it unique because it's uniquely American. That's what makes it different. So regardless of if you were colonized, the thing that came out of the colonization, you wouldn't have hip hop or jazz or pizza or freaking I don't know, American stuff,
Right.
football,
I was gonna say, Keisha, we wouldn't be communicating with people all over the world while I'm up in Michigan, you're down in Florida. We wouldn't be able to do this right now had it not been for human innovation. And how you do that and how you get the kind of innovation that we have today is you must first and foremost place uh, give primacy to the individual over the collective, and you must minimize the influence of the state, right? So as not to swallow and bury and trample on the will in the imagination of the individual. This is the
Mhm.
key to America's success. It's not exploitation, it's liberty. Because your people are allowed to explore and fulfill and express themselves and come up with new ideas and ways in which to well, for better or for worse, because there'll always be setbacks and pitfalls and problems. You can't have it all. We're just human beings, but at the same time, uh, this is what colonization helped to bring to the world. Because he says that there were other things going on in Africa. I think that's a comment that he made. There were great stuff going on in Africa. There are a lot of horrible things going on in Africa too, and there are a lot of horrible things that Europeans came into Africa and put a stop to.
That's true. And
We
like I think Megan said it in the chat, the Brits and the West, went and fixed and restored, a lot of things that other countries did not do so well, or things in our own countries that we didn't do so well, but it was because of Christianity. I'm
exactly.
sorry. I don't understand, like, just because some, people didn't get Christianity all the way right. They make the assumption like, oh, the slave masters, they were wrong on Christianity, as if every Black person, every African slave, or every African person, Black American, whatever, does Christianity all the way right. We still don't get it all the way right. They don't get it all the way right today either. Nobody gets it all the way right. It is the reward goes to those who endure what until the end. Because
Right.
it's real easy to get in something when the getting is good, but are you going to endure till the end? God never promises us a life full of, like fun, like that is reserved for heaven. I'm sorry, like that's just where it's at. This is the testing ground. This is the, God is he's purifying you. He's getting you ready for everlasting life. It's not gonna be utopia. And it's like the more, the more and more we talk about this, the more and more you see that this is just another form of Marxism. They want their
Absolutely.
utopia right now, and
Yeah,
it's not coming,
it's not coming, and
not in its fullness. You can have a peace, you can have a look, you can have some joy, you can have some peace here, some peace there, but the peace that surpasses all understanding, I'm sorry, that's with
God.
Jesus.
That's right.
Like
And
it's not going to be that you're not going to get the fullness here on earth. I
yeah.
think the faster you people can get, Black people in particular can get that into your internalized, the better this life will actually be.
Well, yeah, let me again. You raised a great point, Keisha. I got to second that notion when you said, "No, well, not all Black people get it right either." And this is what you hear from liberation theologians, and in many ways, this came out of Mao. Mao Zedong hit one of his main quotes or something that he would often say is he would say that we had to make sure that we create or promote communism with that had Chinese characteristics. We had to create a type of communism that was uniquely Chinese. Okay, now we can talk about what Mao meant by this. What did he mean? Well, we had to have a type of communism that with Chinese characteristics. What does that mean, right? I bring that up because that's what you get from people like Cone, right? Because he himself draws a distinction between white theology and black theology. Is what he does,
Right.
because if there's a black, then there has to be some kind of Hegelian opposite, right? There has to
Mm-hmm.
be a white. And so this is what you get with, they don't call it like Latin, they just simply call it liberation theology, because this was a Central and South American phenomenon. But a lot of it came from countries like Colombia and Brazil and Peru, or Peru, however they say it.
Mm-hmm.
But they would say that, you say you had people like Paulo Freire and Gustavo Gutierrez and Dom Hilder Camara, who was good friends with the former Pope. You have all these people, and they would say, well, we need a type of theology with Brazilian characteristics, because we don't want because these predominantly Catholic countries. We don't want a Roman-based Christianity. We want a Brazilian-based Christianity, or we want a Peruvian or a Colombian-based theology. So that just sort of begs the question. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well,
Mm.
what it means is you have to take what is important to the people there and figure out a way to subvert their religious understanding, so that you can redirect the focus of the church away from saving souls and bringing people closer to Jesus, so that they can go out in the world and be exemplars of Christ in the way he loves and the way he sacrifices, and his charitable nature and his
Mm-hmm.
sense of justice, and so on and so forth. Well, that's simply not enough, again, because that is a form of transcendental theology. A proper theology has to be broad, and it has to be political, okay? Which all boils down to an abolition of private property, which is something that Gustavo Gutierrez says explicitly in his work. As a matter of fact, I documented it as I was studying it. And he says, it's in chapter 10 specifically. I wrote it down, I marked it down, where he says that we must abolish private property, because he goes on throughout the entire book and never quite tells you what it even means to fight for liberation. He doesn't tell you what it means, but he let his slip show about once or twice.
Mm.
He said that we must abolish private property, right? Because socialism is the earthly and historical example of a kind of godly love that can permeate throughout all of God's creation, to do away with the sin of selfishness, greed, and so on and so forth. Because again, that's what these socialist folks talk about. So that's what theology is: political theology or liberation theology. It is simply communism, right, dressed up in religious language. And so this is what
Truly.
they say: they need a certain type. So when he says that, he talks about Africa, he's trying to draw that link to get you to have this sense that, well, it is we the black folk, we the pole folk, liberation or salvation must come through us. Salvation must come through our eyes, and salvation of the masses must come through our experience. Never
Mm-hmm.
mind the fact that there were all sorts of horrors occurring in Africa before white Christians came in and looked around and said, "What the hell are you people doing? These things have to stop." And
Yes.
there was a lot of pushback for it. And a lot of Africans welcomed white colonists with open arms, because many Africans were prey to their more dominant, aggressive, and warlike neighbors who were not part of their immediate tribe. If you want to look at the first example that comes to mind for me historically would be the case of the Zulus. The
But
Zulus.
before you go, can you check your hit those? Can you check your volume and hit the three dots and see?
Let's
Because
see.
we're still, because people still can't hear you that good. Where it says edit mic settings.
3 dots.
Mm-hmm.
Comments, recording, stream settings. Let's see. Mic volume.
It should be on like your.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh dang! It told me I'm gonna have to restart. It told me I may have to restart my device. So I'm gonna have to leave out and restart my device and come back. But
Gee.
I'll finish up. I'll restart and come back and see if that works. But yeah, just I mean, in short, like I say, these people, these black supremacists, they don't know anything about Africa. They don't know much about many of the black leaders that they look up to here in America. They don't even know who these people are, what they believe, and what they stood for. Africa, when he's talking about Christianity and Christianity, being a mainstay in Africa before it reached Europe, he's neglecting to mention the fact that this was Roman Africa. Once once
I thought about that. Because when they were talking about, well, not in that particular clip, but like just in this conversation in general, when they're talking about like, oh, in Israel, they were conquered by Rome at this time, and it's like, yeah, they were like, Rome was there, but it wasn't, it was. I'm not saying that they weren't brutal, like there weren't some bad things going on. It was just, it's just not as simple as people try to
no.
make it seem. Like when Jesus was talking about the oppressed and things like that, he wasn't talking about just when a king or something oppressed you. There's a lot of different types of oppression, and most of the time he was talking to the disciples. How do y'all, as my followers, what do y'all do when the oppressed, when you see oppressed, when you see the poor? Not what the world is doing, not what the unsaved do. It's what is the guideline for the saved, not the state. He wasn't like, oh, what is Caesar doing? What's Rome doing? No, he was talking, what are y'all doing? What is the church doing?
Right. Because it never and it never deals with how if you were to pursue this Marxist fantasy, which is what this is about. Doesn't matter. You don't have to call it that. I mean that Karl Marx, his name has become synonymous with this kind of utopianism, because I mean he's the most recognizable figure, for whatever reason. And I think just I joked around one time on one of my YouTube channels. I said that it's his name, right? It just really flow. It kind of rolls off the tongue. You know what I mean? Karl, Marx. Marxism is kind of an easy thing to say, although a lot of opinions and theories and attitudes that we attribute to Marx were actually thought up and written by Friedrich Engels. But for some reason, Engelism just doesn't have the same ring to it. So, we can talk about, we need to pursue, more justice and more this and more that. And this kind of envious attitude, this supposition, I don't know where it comes from, that blacks as a whole should be equal to whites. I mean, never mind the fact that whites are on equal footing, depending upon what you're looking at, what social variable or matrix you're looking at to make some kind of a judgment about the overall welfare of any particular ethnic group. But it's not like whites are at the front of the pack. But for some reason, there's like this we have to get equal with them and no one else for
And
what's.
no one else.
But I don't know why do we automatically assume that we're supposed to be this way? Where does this? And I think, and I'm bringing this up rhetorically. I have an answer, and I think it goes into the 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 root and the inherent logic of the Enlightenment and some of the unforeseen consequences of that movement, right? The birth of liberalism and the growth of the secular state, I think, has a lot to do with why we assume that groups are supposed to be equal. And not only that, but that we're supposed to treat each other equally.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's necessarily that shouldn't be the case either. I mean,
Because
because
what is equal?
exactly.
Like
Right.
even God, even Jesus himself, when he gives the parable of the talents, like obviously he get see and see, this is where Marx tries to he steals, he tries to steal from the Bible, because the Bible says to each, I always mix this up. He says he gave to each according to their ability
Talking about the parable of the talents.
or their capacity or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
one got one got five, or I think one, 5 and 10, I think it was, or 1, 2 and 10, something like that. And he didn't give to each one the same thing.
Yeah.
That, I mean, we're like that. God doesn't give I can sing. I was born with the gift of singing. My mom can sing. My sister can, my little sister can sing. We didn't all get the talent of singing. It's 4 of us. We didn't all get the talent of singing.
Right.
We didn't. We came from the same mama, same daddy. We did not all get the talent of singing. My sisters are far more fashionable. I am a simple girl, simple hair, simple stuff. They are way more fashionable.
Right.
We're not all the same.
Right. And we, and we, your fellow citizens, or fellow man, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the market, the interstate chain is global of commodities, but we place a market premium on certain things, right? It's what we want. Now, when I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to you have a conversation with Patty Cake the other day, and he came up with some stupid argument talking about generational wealth, which is just one.
Oh yes.
It's just there they go. Every time I start talking about racism and systemic oppression with the leftists, they always got to talk about generational wealth. That's they one. That's they
That's
one.
they one.
It's like a white man talking about boxing. I got to bring up Rocky Marciano. That's they one. Generational wealth. Never mind the fact.
Don't nobody want to hear about no Rocky Marciano.
Rocky Marciano. That's they one. That's they one.
Say
Generational wealth. Redlining. That's they one.
Ooh,
But
oh, he gets to it. He gets to it in let's keep
let
let's
me just,
okay, go ahead, go ahead, go
Keisha,
ahead,
let
go
me
ahead.
just finish this up. To your point about the talents, and just talking about generational. Well, never mind the fact that, okay, most millionaires live in America. Okay, large, by I think maybe even by sheer number, not just proportionately, but most of the world's millionaires live here because we have a culture of liberty here.
Mm-hmm.
They're cracking away at it. It's barely hanging on, but that just goes to show you how strong it is. Because all you need is all you need is a slither,
Just
and the
a little
floodgates
leaven.
will open. Right? That's all you need is a little leaven. It's gonna rise.
Mm-hmm.
You have the most millionaires, but not only that, Keisha. Even if you just do a quick Google search, it may surprise you. I don't even know what the number is, but something like, I want to say 70, maybe more. I know it's over half of this country's millionaires are first generation millionaires, which means they didn't
Mm-hmm.
inherit anything.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I don't know where you get this idea that you need generational. Most America, there's no such thing. Wealth is gained and lost within the blink of an eye. It
Chuck,
just
you
happens.
know these people. They think that when
Mm.
somebody's great granddaddy owned a slave, they think that they
Yeah,
still got the money
they
from
don't.
when
They
they
don't.
owned a slave.
Right.
I promise you,
So
they think
right.
this.
So let me just land my plane, Keisha, and I'll let you get to your clip. The
Mm-hmm.
whole thing about, he brought up the example of the housing market, and that, black people, their homes are only worth this, and white homes are worth that. And well, let me tell you something. Okay, you do not have the authority, the coercive power. You don't have the threat of incarceration or taxation or anything else to compel someone to pay above market rate for something that they don't want. There's no other industry in the United States that conforms to the fundamental economic principles of supply and demand more so than the housing market. And what determines the value of a home is what it sells for. That's subjective. Subjectively, we can speculate what a piece of real estate is worth, but we do not know until both parties meet up at the closing office and sign their names on the dotted line. That's when we know. But if you want to make the case that blacks can't generate generational wealth because their homes are worth less, then you have to bark at the people who aren't willing to pay overly inflated real estate prices to live in areas that are undesirable. Now, the question is, why don't people want to live in those areas? So, what do you propose we do? Are you proposing that we knock on the door, the metaphorical, the figurative door of the government and say, hey, make these people buy my home at a price that I want to sell it to them, a price point that I want to sell it to them for, or else dot dot dot. I mean, what are you proposing we do? So while you're trying to push for a society that's perfectly just and perfectly equitable and this and that, as the old saying goes, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. What about the sins that you're going to commit on your way toward achieving this? Because all the criminals wind up in government, and we the people just suffer as they play, right, board games with our lives. It's
Trust,
completely
you can
insane.
trust the government. The,
Right.
you
Right.
know, which is the funny thing, because that same government that instituted slavery, no, now they want to trust that government to manage your property, your funds, your money. They want to give that power back to the same group, the same government that had the slaves. Now,
Yeah.
call me crazy, but it seems to me that when government has too much power, they can keep you in bondage. But I don't know. I don't have I'm not
Right.
I'm not a theologian. I don't have a
Right.
PhD.
So
So,
but that's how you get your inequality, Keisha. Your inequality comes by way of how well you serve your fellow man. We make that determination. If we place a market premium on people with singing talent, then perhaps we need to reevaluate our values, right? I mean, the question is always there on the table, but we have no right to tell people, okay, well, here's what you must, allocate resources here or exchange something here for this and that to try and create a world of a world of perfect equity, because then you essentially committed an even greater crime than the crimes that you claimed were prevalent in the first place that compel you to act in a way that caused you to disobey and to dishonor a God that you say you believed in. And to your point, Keisha, lastly, within Christianity itself, if you want to go back to the days of slavery, like you said, there were people who used Christianity or the Bible or whatever the case may be to make the justification for slavery.
mhm.
You had a lot of, and this was a phenomenon that was especially prevalent in the North, not the South. The majority of pro-slavery Christian pastors and clergymen in America during that time, during the 1800s, 1700s, most of them were situated in the North, not the South. But to your point, there were elements within quote unquote white Christianity, and they were having these battles and having these discussions as to how should a Christian, someone who professes to be a Christian, what should they think about the institution of slavery? Okay, what does it what does our faith tell us about slavery? Okay, because Christianity did not create slavery, or Christianity as a faith, as a system, after the death of Christ and the resurrection of Christ, Christianity, when the followers of Christ created this movement that became this religion we call Christianity, Keisha, it inherited a world with slaves in it. it inherited a world
Yes.
full of all sorts of things, from human sacrifice
Mm,
to whether it be female genital mutilation, widow sacrifice in a country like India, for example, where it's tradition for a woman whose husband dies before she does to throw herself on the spire at her husband's funeral, essentially burning herself alive so as not to be a burden to the community because she no longer has a husband.
mm.
The Christians
That's
have,
really good. Christianity inherited. I mean, it makes so it's a fact. I just never thought about it that way. But Christianity inherited a world basically with sin already in
with
it.
sin already in it. It did,
Yeah.
it did, and it helped to. Really, this is why I say colonization on net was a good thing, because it helped solve a lot of these problems. You know, we came over when the Christians came over and to Mesoamerica and saw what the Aztecs were doing. They were mortified at what they saw. The capital of Tenochtitlan, and the level of the human sacrifice and the cannibalism and all of these things. They
You
said
know
that
what?
these
Come to
people
think
are.
of it,
Mm,
even Martin Luther King, the
mm,
whole we're gonna display, we want to dramatize the the beatings and the protests. We want to dramatize because they wanted to play on the sensitivities of Christians.
Christians, yeah.
Christians, because if I'm an atheist, I don't give a doggone what if you're getting beat up in water hose. I don't care nothing about that. I think you're a meat suit.
Yeah.
If you What other religion, what other faith would that would seeing these things move,
Mm,
even if it is propaganda?
right.
It's the Christians.
That's right.
We're the ones that are sensitive to that.
Yeah.
We're the ones that wince when somebody's getting beat. That's why they play this stuff to us. I don't see nobody trying to get the sympathy of Islam. I
That's why
don't.
you. That's why I love what you brought up when you quoted Frederick Douglass, and you said, well, this was going on at the same time. This is why the Islamic slave trade, in almost every historian worth their weight, there's a universal consensus among academicians about the brutality of the Muslim slave trade across the Indian Ocean and across the Sahara. Uh, the way they treated Africans and the Europeans that they took into slavery was so horrific. I mean, the two don't even compare to what
Mm,
occurred here in the United States. Slaves were treated more humanely, and I know it kind of it boggles the mind, and it almost sounds counterintuitive, and it's a hard thing to grasp, but it's true, and that is was because many of these slave owners were Christian men who, again, were they inherited a world where slavery was the norm, and they slowly but surely, it took time with one successive generation after another, and they
mhm.
slowly realized the error of their ways, but it took time. But again, it started off with a mutual camaraderie, right? And a respect was earned, a respect was gained. Once language barriers were broken, religious barriers were broken, slaves began to worship the same God, and so on and so forth. And there
Mhm.
was actually a genuine love and a genuine brotherhood that was developed between slave and slave master. It wasn't just strict, harsh brutality all day, every day. That was
Yeah.
not the truth. That was not the reality in Christian lands where slaves were being kept. Christians treated their slaves more humanely than any other people on the face of the earth, particularly Muslims. Because when you and I talked privately about John Wesley one time,
Mm.
and without going in too deep into John Wesley, I do have a quote from John Wesley right here, because I have a huge Word document file where I keep a lot of quotes that I've come across over the years that really stood out to me. And this is a quote from John Wesley. I read, and actually I pulled this from a book titled Colonialism, written by a great scholar by the name of Nigel Beggar. And he was talking about John Wesley. And here was John Wesley on abolition. This is John Wesley quote: "Had your father Have any man living a right to use another as a slave? It cannot be that either in war or contract can give any man such a property in another, as he has in sheep or oxen. Much less it is possible that any child of man should ever be born a slave. He italicizes born.
Mm.
Liberty is the right of every human creature as soon as he breathes the vital air, and no human law can deprive him of that right which he deserves from the law of nature. That's Enlightenment thinking. If therefore you have any regard to justice, to say nothing of mercy, nor of the revealed law of God, render unto him all their due. Give liberty to whom liberty it is due. That is, to every man, and to every child or man, to every partaker of human nature. Let none serve you but by his own act and deed, by his own voluntary choice. Away with all whips, all chains, all compulsion. Be gentle towards men, and see that you invariably do unto everyone as you would wish he do unto you. John Wesley, one of the most famous and noteworthy European abolitionists in history, and
Mm.
he was a religious man, and so this was a popular attitude amongst so many white Christian men in America, in Great Britain, in France, in Scotland, in Ireland. I mean, this was exploding all across the wider Christian world. This attitude
Yeah.
that was just encapsulated in that quote by John Wesley. So this notion that Christianity was used to enslave, that's just not true.
I wish I don't know why this is such a hard thing to grasp. Like, obviously, like Thomas Sowell made it to me, made it so easy when he said, you can be born in the same household, same mom, same parents, and
Be equal.
every last one of you will go on to do different things, and you won't it may seem like you don't have anything in common as far as, like your core of where you grew up. But people want to make it seem like, just because you are one thing, you can't even get everybody in your own household to grow up and think one thing. What makes you think when you look back at history, you're going to be able to put everybody into one thing? You can't even do it within your own little group of your own household. That's how uniquely we are. Like, you have to respect the uniqueness of the human being. You
Twins.
have to. Like, if you
Twins not even
that
the
is where the disrespect of the image bearer comes from. Like, it's not the group, it's the people in the group. It just don't make no sense. Let me play a little bit more of this clip, and then we're going to end it, because I cannot be up here on 11 o'clock at night. Can't do. Your girl, we both have spouses, so can't do that. So let's see.
Those historical markers I showed them, well, that's not necessarily true.
Right.
Christianity was in Africa before it reached
Correct.
Europe and America.
Yeah.
And
we have biblical support for that.
thank you.
Like, we don't have to go to
If-
extracurricular. We can look in the canonized text of the New Testament.
Geographically.
Yes.
If you just look at the geographic location, the location geographically of what the Bible is saying,
Yes.
you already like it,
Right.
It doesn't matter.
It don't
It
matter.
wasn't in Europe, nor was it in Africa. It wasn't black nor white. I don't understand why this is a thing. It doesn't matter where. It wasn't either. And if I will say it again, if God is telling us, this is open to the Jew, to the Greek, to the Gentile, to the slave. This is open for everybody. Why would we try to, if it's not even just for the Jews, if salvation is not just for the Jews, then it's shown enough. It has nothing to do with the Africans or the Europeans. I'm just saying. I'm going to let him finish, but I just needed to say that one.
I was going to say that it's irrelevant, Keisha.
It's irrelevant.
And when he said, and the reason why he keeps conjuring up, he keeps mentioning Africa. Like I mentioned, this was Carthaginian Africa. This was Roman Africa, where where Augustine and Tertullian and Clement of Alexandria these weren't African men, but these were some of the early Christian apologists and Christian thinkers. And, you know, renowned to this day, people still cite and quote them. These weren't black African men. I mean, you're talking about something that
That's what
doesn't
they're
even
saying. They're saying that these were
exactly.
black
No,
Africans.
no. And again, if you want to talk about the Ethiopian church, and there's talks and mentions of that in the Bible, and the links between Solomon and Sheba, and how we're familiar with that. But to your point, Keisha, it is completely irrelevant, because the kind of Africa that he's talking about is this Pan-African, this Afrocentric Marxian conception of a kind of Africa. That's what he's talking about, because he's trying to convince folk why they should adopt his brand of, or a brand of Christianity that he has adopted, of this kind of political Christianity, this black liberation type Christianity. That's what he wants.
Yes.
That's what
It's
he wants.
not, somebody asked unapologetic, unabashed, unashamed, apologetic. He says, what's wrong with his book? This is what's wrong with his book. It's a disguise. It's not real. He's not pointing you to Jesus alone. He's anytime you try to say the gospel, I can be unapologetic. This is what he says. I can be unapologetically black and unapologetically Christian. Okay, I got to stop you right there. What does he mean when he says black? Because clearly it's more than pigment. It doesn't just mean pigment if you're saying I can be both, because it would be obvious. It doesn't need to be said. If it was just pigment, he's talking about an ideology, and you cannot be both black ideologically and Christian. They don't go together.
It's revolutionary. It's a blackness as a revolutionary consciousness is what it is. We've tried to explain it to people in the chat, the people who don't understand, the people that have, the brave souls that have come up and tried to debate you on this issue. Like I said, the shift in rhetoric in the 1960s marked the beginning of the stand up and black fist, the militant Negro, because the term Negro connoted the old days, the former half of the 20th century, when black folks was just going along to get along. Right, those were, the term Negro was meant to connote the era of Uncle Tomism that was going the way of the dodo bird by the late 1960s, when we saw the rise of black militancy with the Black Panther organization, Stokely Carmichael and other such figures. And so that's what that means. So when he's talking about black, when he's talking about being black, he's talking about being being this kind of leftist political revolutionary. That's what black consciousness is. It's a revolutionary consciousness, a revolutionary movement.
Okay, I'm gonna let him finish.
For the apologetic guy in the comments, if he doesn't understand.
Yeah, I hope he's still here. I wish he would. I don't understand these people. Anyway, but
it's okay, because you don't want to be up too late anyway.
Yeah. How do I get that? Where is it? How do I get this thing back up here?
Right. But some people don't know that. So just widening and broadening the history and explaining the history that they don't understand. They're like, whoa, wait a minute, I didn't know that. So that's not the Bible we had? So no, it's not the Bible. 90% of the Old Testament was missing. That's what made Nat Turner turn up.
Right.
Nat Turner got a hold of a whole Bible.
Exactly.
And he read Exodus and was like, wait a minute, you mean God demands?
Yes.
When he heard let my people go, he was like, it's on now.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he realized,
I'm standing on Bible for this.
Come on, we stand with God of liberation. Let's go.
That's right.
So, when they understand that history, they were like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know this.
Right.
No one told me this. No pastor. When I was talking to these young college black men, they were like, but nobody's told us this. Our pastors haven't taught us this. Nobody's explained this to us. Nobody's told us this.
Okay, so can we go slow right here?
Yeah.
Because I am. Okay, nobody told you, but with what little information you received, you standing on business.
Yes, you did.
You know what I mean?
Yes, you did.
Like it is the Rock of Gibraltar.
Yes.
Right? So can you speak to that? I just think we are in a generation now where people will take the tidbit
sound bites
that they know,
yep,
and stand on it And no wonder it crumbles under, not even under scrutiny, just additional information, and you already whomped.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Well, did you check?
No. The answer is no.
Exactly.
Because their mind
You
was
didn't even check.
And that's the key. So the ploy is, if I want to get you away from the church or get you away from Christianity, is to pull your emotional strings.
That's right.
You start talking about my great grandmother and stuff our grandparents had to go through and our ancestors had to go through. There's an emotional pull
For sure.
immediately.
Yeah.
And then when that tragedy of history.
Y'all, he's from freaking London. Oh my gosh, this is irritating me so bad. He's from freaking London. He's not even from here.
Right.
Why do you want to be? You want to be oppressed.
You're from the mother country, you know, that oppressed my fellow citizens centuries ago.
He want to be. He's like Trevor Noah. Oh, my people. Oh, it's us. Because I'm verified. I'm validated because I got the melanin. Okay. Don't check my background. You ain't got to know nothing else. I come in the right color. Even though there's nothing good in the flesh, even though we're supposed to die daily to the flesh, don't worry about that. We're lifting up the flesh. Okay.
He uses Nat Turner as an example. Nat Turner was, he inspired a lot of the Black Panthers. I remember there's a speech that Tupac Shakur's mother gave. I probably got it somewhere. I could pull it up in my notes.
Well, we got, you know what? Aaron is in the chat. Aaron, not in the chat. Aaron is backstage. I'm going to bring up Aaron. He has something to say. What's up, Aaron? How you been? How you doing?
Good. How y'all doing today?
We're good. We're good. What's going on?
Not much. Been a while. I had to take a break after our last debate.
It's all good. You know, you had to go get schooled up. You know, you had to go.
I had to go study. So I know. I had to go study, man. Crazy. It's crazy. Are y'all talking about the brother's book?
The Gospel in My Black Skin.
In My Black Skin. Yeah. What do y'all think about that?
I hate it.
Oh my gosh. That's how you feel about it too, Chuck? You don't like it either?
He hasn't read it, I don't think.
I was just responding to we was talking about an excerpt from the book that Keisha read on our live stream, and we were responding to this interview, this podcast right here, but I haven't read the book. No.
Yeah, I think Keisha's probably not doing a good job framing his argument. I think that it's kind of looping him in with the James Cones of the world, and I don't. Yes, I mean I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like. I don't think he's positing that blackness is like is what we use as a hermeneutic tool to like understand the text. That's not what I get from, and I would say that's the difference between James Cone and a lot of the people a lot of the quote unquote black activists that you like to speak about. Like for an example, like I told, go ahead.
Now I was gonna ask you, have you read it? Have you read that book?
No, but I'm familiar with what he's talking about and his ideas. So
okay. How do you feel about? I don't want to change the subject. I want you to pivot back to what you were talking about. But how do you feel, if you can sum it up for me? How do you feel about James Cone's theology? What do you think about it?
I think it's problematic.
Okay.
I think when you take anything and put it over scripture, or when you make your race ultimate in some way, you're going to run into problems. So I would say that it's at its premise is flawed.
Okay, I'm gonna quote from his book because I bought it. I'm not one of these people that just be hearing clips. I had to buy it so I could make sure, because I don't like being wrong. So I needed to check to see if what the vibe that I was getting was actually correct. So I got it, and we can watch it, or we can let's see, how do I do that? Okay, so he has a bunch of statements about Cone in his book. Here's one right here. It says, Cone was clear. A faith that refused to stand with the suffering was not true to Christ. His theology was bold, unsettling, and rooted in the lived experience of Black people who had endured centuries of religious hypocrisy. Some of his later writings would some of his later writings would stir debate, especially in how he engaged whiteness. But to understand Cone, you must understand the pain he was responding to, the betrayal by those who claimed to follow Jesus, but upheld systems that crucified Black dignity. No, this dude is very much in line with Cone. Like I said from the beginning, let me just state my premise. He's softening Cone. He's softening Stokely Carmichael. He's softening the round. He's not trying to be so militant because he knows that would not work in his current environment. But he still agrees. Make no mistake, he still agrees. Let's see. What else has he said about Cone? He's got a bunch of stuff in here about Cone, as we can see.
Yeah. So are you arguing that is the argument that if he agrees with the parts of Cone's work that is not heretical, because I don't think you would argue that what was just posited was heretical in some way, was it?
Black dignity?
Yeah.
It's not heretical. It's not. It has
That's
to be,
heretical.
It has to be. Well, again,
Black dignity is heretical?
I don't know if you use the term.
What kind of
heretical out
dignity?
context.
What is black? What is black?
Or
That's
is it
why I
unorthodox?
keep
Like,
going back
is it not?
to
Is it
defining
not
what
authentic? Hold on, say again.
That's why we have to define black because when you put it in front of another term, Black dignity, Black church, Black whatever, now you got to tell me what black is because you are saying it beyond a pigment. You're giving it a weightier definition than what it really means. Black is not just skin color to these people, because how are you going to have just skin color dignity? That doesn't make sense.
Before you respond, Aaron, I just like to say that I think the term heretical is being used out of context here because I didn't hear anything theological. All I heard was some historical or sociological screed or critique.
Yeah.
Right. And therein lies the problem because there was nothing theological in what Keisha just read.
I'm sorry, my fault. I believed her overall critique of Cone is that he's heretical, right?
Well, yeah.
So that's why I mentioned that there was nothing there that was heretical.
Okay, so that part of Cone you agree with that's like that's the crux. Pardon of my use of that.
Well,
term.
it's not whether or not. I mean, I can have a difference of opinion. I'm just saying that your difference. So you and I can have a difference of opinion about whether or not what he's saying is true or not. But it's a difference from moving from, hey, I disagree with that particular opinion about Black dignity or and I would say there's a theological lens to what he just said actually. As I'm rethinking it now, because if you pull that back up, he actually says that he mentions Christianity, does he not?
Yes, but
So
here, let me pull it up.
He said something about the hypocrisy of.
He says a faith. Well, Cone was clear. A faith that refused to stand with the suffering was not true to Christ.
Yeah, that's clearly that's theological. He's making a claim about.
Let me ask you, what is meant? What do you think he means by suffering? Who are these suffering people?
Well, I would assume that I'm not sure of the context of the statement that he's referencing, but I would assume that he's referring to Black people in this country.
Black people in this country. Okay.
But is Christianity does it only refer to Black people suffering when it talks about suffering?
No, but like as I said before in our previous conversation, there's nothing wrong. I mean, you could say that I don't like it, or you say I have a difference of opinion, but there's nothing objectively wrong with me saying my people and I care about my people and their prosperity or their salvation. There's clearly nothing wrong with that.
As
First of all, let me
Christians,
say,
you're saying there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's not.
I don't know. I don't know who my people are, but let me ask you this:
I'm talking about in reference to what Cone is saying.
what Cone said. Okay, so it wasn't Keisha. I don't think Keisha with what she just read. I don't think what she did mention something about hypocrisy or I forgot. Let me see. Let me look at the screen because it's kind of small. I
Oh,
can't remember exactly what you said, but I'm just curious because because we know that the Cone has this thing. I mean, this is the whole theme of liberation, right? It's about liberating folks from oppressive systems and what have you. Of course, there are individuals, flesh and blood individuals, who benefit from the status quo, right? The working condition of these systems that are inherently oppressive and unjust. So I just wonder, can one be a Christian and be in that position? And if so, what is the gospel message to the so-called oppressor? Because there's this bifurcation between a gospel that is focused on galvanizing or evangelizing to the oppressed, like someone in Howard Thurman's position who talked about this in his work, Jesus and the Disinherited. This very notion, this very idea that blacks feel out of place within Christianity because they feel as though it is an institution and an idea that has been used to oppress them and so on and so forth. And so what they have taken up the responsibility of doing, the author of this work, and going back to Combe, is they're trying to inject this kind of revolutionary attitude within Christianity so as to get it to work in the service of their own political ambitions. Because my question, again, and I repeat, I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting off into a comment more so than a question, but does the gospel message change as it goes across the different social strata within our society, from rich to poor, from black to white, from male to female? Is there a different message in the gospel for each one of those individuals or people who belong to these groups that Cone and others would like to carve out?
Um, I believe that the Word of God is alive, and whatever culture, people group that the gospel of Christ interacts with, um, it will hit them at every angle. It will touch their sin. It will convict them, convict their hearts, regardless of the culture or the people group. The gospel is going to affect them because that's the power of a living gospel. I think, I guess, to the heart of your question, it sounds like you're asking me, um,
I know it's kind of all over the place. Let
yeah.
me try to sum it up to make it a little bit easier. Because again, with Cone, and it to me, it sounds like, based upon what Keisha just read, it sounds to me like, I mean, maybe there are some aspects of Cone's theology that this author would be critical of, but it doesn't sound to me like he is in full-fledged opposition to Cone's overall thesis. As a matter of fact, I think you would probably be more opposed to Cone than the author of this work. People like Cone will suggest, and this is the entire premise of this political theology or liberation theology, is that God specifically identifies with the oppressed. And the language in the literature of liberation theologians is very overt and explicit. It states that in order to fulfill God's, and I don't want to get into the weeds and what they talk about and go into fine detail because we don't have the time for that, but it is explicitly in their literature that God is on the side of the oppressed.
Mm.
So I'm trying to figure out exactly how does one, and again, within the liberation theologian literature, they explicitly state that it was the orthodox perspective or position of the church as an institution in both Catholic and Protestant strains that allowed for the growth of this inherently wicked status quo. And they specifically pinpoint ideologies or institutions such as capitalism. This would be Cone, this would be Gutierrez, and many
Mm.
others. Now, it is because of this inherently unjust system that promotes private property and all these other things, right? They say if the church does not involve itself and Christians themselves in overthrowing these systems, then they cannot consider themselves to be real Christians
Mhm.
because And in order to know that the system must be changed, you have to be in a disadvantaged position, because the person who is in an advantaged position, he benefits from the status quo, which is why he doesn't support revolution. And so revolution is on the side of the Christian, it is on the side of the oppressed, and so it is up to the oppressed, i.e., the proletariat. Again, they are Marxists. They just changed it and substituted with religious language. So my question is are there two different gospels for the oppressed and the oppressor? Are there two different messages? Because they would suggest that it is. As a matter of fact,
Yeah, and that's
the
where,
oppressor doesn't even have
yeah,
a place at this table.
yeah, I wouldn't put that on a brother, because again, at that point, you are in my opinion, you're in idolatry at that point.
Okay.
I wouldn't put that on the brother, but I do agree that one of my critiques of Cone is that um, he centers blackness and blackness essentially, and he makes it this sort of infallible characteristic. And because you are black, you are oppressed, and therefore God is on your side. And it kind of almost makes you like the chosen people of God, where God is going to protect you. He's going to protect you because you are the oppressed. And
Yeah.
although I agree that God protects the oppressed, according to the scripture, as like God cares about the oppressed because he's righteous, it doesn't mean that the oppressed are quote unquote infallible. And I think the best example of that is the Exodus account, because you have God calling them to freedom, but to freedom to what? To calling them to freedom um to worship me in the wilderness, to worship Lord their God. So it's a form of freedom to something, to an end of responsibility. So it's like you're free to worship me, and if you don't worship me, you're going to receive some of the same punishments that a quote unquote oppressor receives. So I think that there is um, a form of Marxism that creeps into Combs' theology. I don't think that's what the brother is saying, though. I think that he's just reiterating, hey, yes, God cares about the oppressed. So what I would be looking for, a signal for me, is that I would be looking for language centered around the oppressed having some sort of infallible characteristic or chosenness that um, removes them, puts them in a separate category. And if that were to happen, then I would agree with you guys. I just haven't heard the brother
I've heard
say
that.
anything like that at all. And if it's in his book, then we could talk about it. But what the sister just read, I don't think that in itself is problematic. It would have to be attached to other things.
Right.
So what about when he
Hey,
says,
before you jump in, I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
let y'all go. It's almost 11. Let me get off here. Hey, Aaron, good to see you, bro. Nice talking to
Yeah.
you. It's almost 11. I'm gonna get up out of here. Y'all go ahead and finish. But I'll be listening though. But I gotta go walk my dog and
Okay.
jump in the shower because I gotta be at work at 4 a.m.
Man, no
Oh
doubt.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
get some rest, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be on here long either.
Y'all later. But I'm
All
listening
right.
still.
All right.
Okay.
Good night,
Thanks
everybody.
for stopping by.
Good night.
Um, so he says that let's see. Sorry, I'm just learning how to use this thing. He says, I think this is
I need to grab that book. Do you have did you get like an e-copy of it or something?
yeah, it's a Kindle. I just got the Kindle. It was
Oh,
like
okay, okay.
12, $13. So
Okay, I'm gonna grab it after we get off here. I'm gonna check it out.
yeah, you should. I mean, it's an easy read. I mean, it just is. Let's see. Okay. So this says, these are like some of his prescriptions, challenge the systems that divide. You already know this truth. Some of the deepest wounds come not from personal prejudice, but from systems set up to exclude. If Jesus tore down the dividing wall, then we are called to do the same. That includes speaking up in your church, your workplace, your city, wherever those systems still separate and silence. Don't let anyone tell you the gospel is only about personal salvation. Jesus didn't just save souls, he created a new people through regeneration. Now, I don't even understand. Don't let anybody tell you the gospel is only about personal salvation. I mean, I think it is about personal salvation, and I don't understand what it has to do with he created a new people through regeneration. I, I don't even understand how those two, I don't understand that combo, but don't let anybody tell you that the gospel is only about personal salvation. He's saying it's not just your personal salvation, but you got to go and tear down the system too. Like that's what he's saying. He's saying it's not just about
Yeah.
you and
So
your
again, I guess.
soul,
So I
getting
guess
your
the
soul right. He's
yeah.
saying you got to speak up in church, your workplace, wherever these racist systems
Well,
exist.
that's where I was going. So I guess the emphasis, and I'm actually excited to read the book. So what does he mean by systems one? And because challenge the systems that divide. Um, I guess it. What do you mean by system?
He
And that's
means
where.
the political system.
Okay, well, I don't. What is? Yeah, but I guess I gotta understand what he means by that. I guess so. I have to look into it because this is not giving me any context of what he means by challenge the system that divide. What is that
Okay.
though?
Well, I mean,
Because it like the reason I say that is because um I can challenge sin, right? I can challenge. I think we're called as believers to call out sin. And
mhm,
if there are institutions, if there's churches that are operating in sin, if that's what he's talking about, then I do think as believers we are obligated to call it out. Like, I'm sure you would have you would take issue with the quote unquote transgendering of children, right?
mhm,
Allowing children to get some sort of sex change or something like that. Like that is completely wrong and that is sinful. And if there are
mhm.
institutions, hospitals, wherever it may be, government that it promotes that, Christians should speak out against that. So
Right,
if
but
that's what
that's
he's
the
arguing, then I
actual.
don't have a problem with that. So it depends
Yeah,
on what he means by systems.
I mean, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about laws. He's talking about institutions, and he's talking exactly that same thing. But he's trying to say that the racist system is embedded, excuse me, it is embedded into the American system. So that's why
Right.
there's always this perpetual fight. The fight is
Mhm.
never over for these people because racism, this one sin is embedded into the system. So you're
Right.
always going to be fighting. So God, Jesus dying on the cross, dying for your sins and rising about that ain't enough, because the sin in, it is embedded into the racist sin that somehow wasn't on the cross, and that one is embedded into the system, and so you're going to have to keep fighting that one. So it takes the focus off of your personal salvation, and now it puts the focus onto the system, which God never called you to. That is not your main focus. Your focus should be to help lead the person who's running for office to salvation. So when they go into the office, they live their life as a Christian, as a true believer. Not
Yeah.
like, oh, yes, ooh, I love the Lord, but this
Yeah,
system.
so I guess I want to understand what he means because if he's saying, I guess when he says, "Don't let anybody tell you that the gospel is only about personal salvation," well, I think that is that's the starting point. If you don't have personal salvation, you can't move into um speaking about the the other things that come after. So God works on, he reconciles you to himself, works on your heart, you become a new creature, and then by nature of you becoming a new creature, you have new behavior, you have the heart of God in regards to certain issues, and then you can move. So I don't know.
So
Again,
then
a lot
why
of this.
would we need to tear down the system then?
Well, because if he, again, it depends. You would agree that there are corrupt systems that need to be torn down. Like, for example, you yourself are tearing down the corruption in the black church, right? Like, that's just like, and you believe that that should be torn down. That's something you're doing based
I
on your.
believe the race idolatry, but I am not like,
So if you can call out race idolatry, can't you? If you can call out racial idolatry at the hands of black parishioners who idolatrize
and I'm
or
talking
center
about
their
the
race.
person, like I'm talking
Yeah.
about specific people.
No, you're
They're
talking about the
talking
black
about,
church, the like the idea of blackness, the system,
yes,
all of
the
that.
idea of black. That's a real thing though.
Yeah, so but so
Where
is white supremacy though, right?
where's the institution of white supremacy?
Where's the institution of blackness?
The black church, that's an institution. You said yourself.
Okay, so the white church. The white church is the white church.
So what is the white church? Where's the white church? Where's the institution of the white church?
But again, when you say that, right? When you say where's the institution of the white church, you agree there is a white church, right?
I don't agree. I'm asking you. You're
Do you?
telling me
Real
that
quick,
there's
catch the question. Are you familiar with Joe Webbin?
You said this
See,
last
you don't
time
like that. See, you can't do that. That's
because
not
he's
fair.
not. He doesn't rep. He's not. He's a person. He doesn't
That has a church and a
represent.
following, right?
But he's not he's an influencer. He's not
Okay, he's a
he's
pat.
not
Okay, hold on, hold on.
he
So we had this conversation. Joel Webbin did a series with Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes has 40,000 viewers to his program, 40,000 souls that hear his blasphemy and his racial idolatry. If you can call out the black church, why is it a problem if I want to call out these racial idolaters? What's wrong with that? Like,
I'm not
why can't you stand
I
with me
don't
with
have a
that?
problem with you calling out Joel Webb
Yeah,
and
but
Nick
you're
Fuentes.
minimizing and saying,
I'm
well,
talking
he's
about
just an
myself.
influencer.
Yes, but they're not what's their institution? Are they a part of some institution that has power in America? The black church is an institution unto itself. It says it itself. Where is the white institution that says we're having our white church convocation or we're having our
I just gave you one.
where
I literally just gave you one. I
where
gave you. I just told you Joel Webbin.
I'm not under okay. Where is the Joel Webbin institution of white church?
It's
Where
online.
is the institution?
It's online. It's an institution that's online with all of his online followers, and he has a congregation of white supremacists that meet on Sundays whenever else he has services to hear him spew his rhetoric. And he also partners with individuals like Nick Fuentes, who has again 40,000. Name me one black church that has a viewership of 40,000 viewers. Can you name me one? I'm just asking. You can't name me. You can't name any.
I'm gonna do you better than that. I'm gonna do you
Okay.
better than that.
But you would agree that that's a problem, right?
I don't think it's the same thing. I think he's an
Yeah, I agree. It's
influencer.
not the same thing. I don't think the idolatry exists in the black church. I think the idolatry certainly exists with Joe. Can you find me any clip from any of the pastors from the 7 major black denominations that say things like Joe Webbin says?
Hold on. Let's just one thing at a time, sir. One thing at a time. Okay. So we have we have the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the
Amen.
the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, National Baptist USA Convention, the National Baptist Convention of America, the Progressive National Baptist Convention, and the Church of God. These are black church institutions. We ain't talking about one or two influencers or pastors. You got let's see, the what let's see, you got the did I say the Conference of National Black Churches? You got that, and all of these have a combined membership of more than 30 million people and 50,000 congregations throughout the United
Praise
States.
the Lord. God is good. Amen. That's
They
amazing.
they explicitly use this collective power to push systemic social change. This is
What's wrong? Okay, hold on for a second. What's wrong with systemic
wait.
social change?
Now we're gonna stay. That
Okay.
is an institution. Joe Webbin they ain't got that. This has been built for decades. This
Okay.
black church has
Yeah,
been
they don't
built
have that
for
level of
decades.
organization. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, so they don't have they're not an institution. And you know good and doggone well, if any white person, any pastor tried to get a group of white people and said, you know what, we gonna have a white church since they got the black church. Now, you know what, they're gonna do exactly what the Methodist Church did. Oh, you know, they're saying that we're racist. We need to separate ourselves. You know, we can't worship with them. They tell us that, you know, we're racist and we're white supremacists. So we're just going to start our own. We're going to start our own thing. We're going to have white church now. And so I'm sure you would be totally fine with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I don't think that that is a church of Christ. I don't think that these racially carved out churches are churches that belong to the Lord. The very fact that there is something in front of church other than Jesus says all it needs to be said, in my opinion. You can't have a black church, a white church, and then be like, yeah, but we're the Church of Christ. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think, but I think, yeah, but I think so. That's begging the question because we already. You're not telling me why. Like, why is it wrong to have a black church? But because you're saying, well, it's wrong to have a black church because you're putting blackness first. And I tried this in our last conversation. It doesn't logically follow just because you have a black church that you're somehow centering race. If by black church what you mean is that my church is defined by blackness, then yeah, that's problematic because that shouldn't be how your church is defined. But if you mean by black church the same thing we would mean by if I were to ask you, hey, where's the closest Hispanic church? Right? You'd be like, oh, right over there. Right? Like you would know what I'm asking. You wouldn't say, oh, why is it a Hispanic church? Right? You wouldn't have a problem with that. So in that same way, if the Hispanic church can exist, why can't the black church?
where's it? I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, look, I know where the Hispanic church is. I wouldn't know what that meant either. Now, if you ask me where is there a Spanish speaking church, then yeah, I could go and help you find a Spanish speaking church. But if you asked me where is the Hispanic church, I wouldn't even know. I would, if somebody asked you that, would you know what would you say?
Yeah, I would just look it up.
So there are churches that are like the Hispanic church.
Yeah, I can just Google it right
I mean,
now.
I had never seen that.
If I Google a Hispanic church near me, I'm sure I'm gonna get a bunch of
No,
options.
I'm talking about a category, the Hispanic church.
No, we're talking about no. Okay,
The
so
black church is an institution. It is a category unto itself.
okay, but you're not
I
telling me
believe
why that's wrong. So you're saying the black church is a category, and I ask you why is it wrong? Because the black
because,
church, because the black. Okay,
because
why
the
is it
doctrine.
wrong?
Okay, it's a couple things
Okay,
here. Black in this, it's not talking about skin color. They're not talking about, oh, these are Christian that happen to be black. No, they're talking about a way of being. Case in point, in Foster's book, he says, oh wait, let me find it. Hold on, it's like in the end, 1 second. He says that Let's see. I thought I highlighted it. Hold on. Oh gosh. Oh, here it is. He says, here, let me
Who
pull
is
it up.
this?
This is Foster, The Gospel in My Black Skin. So this is page 196. He says, I am unapologetically Black. So what does that mean? What does that mean if it's just skin color? What does that mean?
I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't think it's just skin color, but the fact that he's not just referring to something that's skin color doesn't automatically mean that it's like wrong. You have to give the argument. You have to say, okay, what he means by I'm unapologetically Black is that he means that he centers his Blackness over Christ. And the way he does that, like, you have to craft an argument. But what you're doing is that you're just saying, see, he said he's unapologetically Black,
No, I asked
and
you a
that's
question.
wrong.
I asked you. I didn't say see. I'm asking you. I'm saying, okay, what does he mean by this? I am unapologetically
I don't
Black.
know. We got to look it up. I don't know what he means by it, but it doesn't mean just because you don't know what it
Then if
means.
you don't know what it means when they say this, then how do you know that it's not wrong?
How do you know? Okay, hold on for a second. It's possible that it is wrong, but it's also equally possible that it's right.
No, it's not.
Okay,
Here's
hold on.
why.
Next question. Next
Number
question.
one, because if you're trying to give moral agency, or you're trying to give more characteristics, more definition to your pigment, you're already wrong. Not just theologically, but scientifically. You're literally saying my pigment, my melanin, the melanin sites, or whatever the thing is called, that makes your skin more brown,
Okay,
has a characteristic that is now beyond pigment, and it is a part of thought, an idea, a consciousness. You've gone beyond pigment. Your
yeah.
skin don't do that. It's biologically, it scientifically doesn't have that function. So not
Okay.
only are you theologically wrong, but you're scientifically wrong too, because what you're trying to make your skin have is the very same thing that racist people, that real white supremacists, the KKK, that is exactly what they said. They took skin color and said, oh, this has more, they assigned a destiny to you. You're less than human. You can't think, you can't read, you can't fill in the blank because you're Black. Now they're saying, I'm taking that same idea that I'm saying, I'm adding all my attributes to Blackness. And you can't, neither one of those are rooted in Christian faith. Neither one.
Okay.
You just swap one for the other. They're both sinful. They're both heretical. Neither one of them can you stand before the king and be like, yo, I don't, there's like an echo or something.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's better. Oh yeah, much better. When you try to use your skin color as this, when you take it outside of merely what it is, pigment, and you assign other characteristics to it, you're doing the same thing that the slave masters, KKK, white supremacists have done. You're just doing it for your side. And if you're going to say that the KKK and the white supremacists and the slave masters were wrong, which they were, then you using your Blackness in a positive light or trying to flip the script or whatever, that is wrong too.
Okay, so I wanted to just real quick read the first part of what the book says here. This is just a summary because I haven't actually purchased the book because I'm not signed into my um Amazon on this computer. I was going to try to purchase it, but just let me just look at this real quick. So it says, okay, so it says, its stated purpose, this is of the book, its stated purpose is to confront how Christianity was used against Black people while reclaiming Christianity as a source of dignity, justice, liberation, and Christian identity for Black believers. So if what Foster is doing in the book is reclaiming back the or reestablishing the idea that you don't necessarily have to abandon being a Black person in order to be Christian.
Okay,
right?
what does that mean?
Well, we got to look at the book and to see what that means. I'm just
But
stating the
what does
argument.
that mean to you?
I'm just stating the argument.
I get it, but when you hear
So,
that, what does that mean to you? Because these words and terms have been
well, I
around for
think
a long
okay.
time.
So let's try. Let me try to analyze it, even though I haven't read the book. Right.
Mhm.
What I think he's saying is that Christianity was used as a tool by colonizers, white supremacists, whatever you want to call them. It was used as a tool of oppression. Right. We're going to use this book and we're going to baptize our sin and say it's ordained by God. It's our holy right to be able to do what we're doing, right? And he's responding to this argument, and he's saying that you don't have to abandon the fact that you are a Black person and conform to their idea of Christianity.
Okay, I get that, but how do I can't I wake up in this every day. What do you mean abandon my Blackness? I'm Black. I'm Black. Like how are you going to take this from me? You can't.
Well,
So
that's not what it means. That's not what again, this is why
exactly. That's not
I
what
know,
he
but
means. So what does he mean when he says
I know, but but that would be okay. Hold on for a second. Here's the problem with it, though. If you would have to define if you're making an argument saying what he's saying is wrong, it's not the gospel, it perverts the God, whatever, right? You would have to insert an argument and say what he means. But if you don't know what he means, then you can't. And this goes back to this is what I wanted to say earlier. When you said neither one of us know what he means by confront the system or unapologetically Black, we don't know what he means by that. Therefore, we can insert what we think he means and indict him on that.
no? We
Okay,
have
so
we
if
have
you don't know what he
context,
means,
no, because
okay,
this is how we learn, how we
okay,
I'm a homeschool mom. So you have context, you have history, you have his worldview, the authors that he is citing. So you can discern by reading through his writings and listening to his interviews and things like which I've been listening to him. He's not talking about pigment. He's talking about an ideology.
yeah, but that's not wrong within itself, though. If so, speaking of an idea, you have an
No, let me
ideology.
finish. I do.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
Okay.
But his ideology is not, he's talking Christian like, but when you get down to what he's actually saying, this is my problem with him, is because it sounds kind of good. Like it's softer. This is my whole point. It's a softening of Black power. It's a softening of the social gospel. It's not both this
Okay,
right
social
in the face
gospel. Okay.
and all of this
Okay,
kind of
so
stuff.
okay, let's stay in social
Even
gospel.
hold on, let me finish. Even
Okay.
to the way he's presented on his thing. with the red, white, the red, black, and green. That is a statement. Okay, whatever. You can think that these things don't mean anything, but homeboy is saying a lot without saying a word.
Listen. I don't think there's
Anyway,
nothing inherently
I
wrong
will
with
digress from that. You can laugh and whatever, but trust me, I know what I'm talking about. The other thing is, if we can deduce from all of these things that he's not talking about your pigment, because obviously I can be pigmentally black and be a Christian. So if that is obvious and he's saying he's unapologetic about this thing, he ain't talking about your skin color. And he's got the B capitalized. It's a noun. It's not your skin color. Okay. He's giving it more weight. And I think you already know this. Like, it's not talking about your skin color. So therefore, it's talking about what you believe. And
I
he's
agree with that,
saying,
though.
I can hold these two beliefs, Blackness and Christianity, at the same time, but you can't. Here's another reason why. Thank you, Holy Spirit. One is man-made. It is of the flesh. And what does the Bible tell us to do with the flesh? Is there any good thing in the flesh?
No.
Okay, then. So how the heck are we going to be unapologetically black and Christian?
Yeah, I guess I'm still waiting on you to tell me, but it sounds as if you keep saying, okay, he says he's unapologetically black, and we can deduce what he means by unapologetically black is that he just doesn't mean skin color. Okay, so I'm saying even if that's the case, right? I agree with you. I know he's not just talking about his skin color. He's
Okay.
talking about a lot of other things.
Okay.
Then you have to walk me through about what those things are and how those are wrong. So what are the things that he means that are not just skin color, and how are those things wrong? Like, what are those things, and how is he wrong by saying he's unapologetically those things? So if it's a
Is
social, you
black
mentioned social gospel, right?
okay,
So
but
if
wait,
it is,
let me
yeah,
answer your question.
okay, go ahead.
Is you said we can deduce that he's not talking about skin color, but we don't know for sure that what
He's
he is
not
talking
just
about
talking about skin color.
okay. So this thing that he's talking about, this blackness that's undefined, is it does it come from God or is it man-made?
Um, it can be man-made, but I don't think that means automatically that it's like automatically sinful. There's a lot of things that's man-made that doesn't mean that it's sinful, right?
When it comes to ideas, beliefs, thoughts, when you are claiming to be a Christian, whatever this man-made thought is, it has to align with the Bible or you have to reject it, right?
Okay, I agree with that. So if he believes something that conflicts with the scriptures, then I would agree with you. But you would have to make an argument on what he believes and how the idea he holds is not in alignment with scripture. And I haven't heard you be able to do that. And that's why I'm saying that you would have a good case if you actually said what he is doing, or what he means by unapologetically black and how it doesn't align with scripture. But you just keep saying, well, it's wrong because he has an idea. But when I ask, well, what is the idea he has? It's like, well, it's the idea. But what is it though?
All right, Aaron. I mean, I think we know what blackness is. I think you can infer what he means when he says blackness. Blackness is it's a political class. He means oppressed. That's why he's mentioning these writers, the classic black liberation theory theology writers.
If that's what he means, I agree with you. He's right. If he's saying, if he's taking blackness and putting it into a category of oppressed, like blackness is the oppressed, and he is doing the same move that Cone does, where we view scripture through that lens. Somehow, God is on the side of black people, because black people are the oppressed. If that is the move he makes, then you have me right here quoted that is in fact wrong, and we need to hold him accountable to that. but I haven't seen you make the argument for that. So that's why I'm saying that
Okay.
if
So
you can
what,
make the argument, I'll be willing to hear it out, but I just haven't heard that argument.
all right. What other ways do people who espouse these types of, what other ways do we hear blackness? How is it defined otherwise outside of it being your skin color? What, I mean, what other ways, what else can it mean? Not necessarily pertaining to Foster, but just blackness in general. What else can it mean, or does it typically mean?
It can mean multiple things. One thing it could mean is that you care about the culture, heritage, and prosperity of Black people.
So that's being black. No,
No, you didn't ask about
okay,
being Black. That's not what you
Black.
asked. No, that's not what you asked. You asked about blackness.
Blackness.
So
What is the
I'm
another
assuming
other
you're talking
definition?
about. I'm assuming what you're talking about is being the statement he makes about being unapologetically Black, right?
Well, I mean, aside from him, I'm just saying, like, just in the American zeitgeist, like, what is the other way that people talk about, if it's not pigment? What other ways do people talk about blackness? Besides pigment.
History, family, culture, heritage.
But all people groups have this.
Yeah, and that's why all people groups have different identifiers, different ways they identify themselves. And it's typically not wrong until we talk about blackness. Then it's like, oh, wait a minute, y'all know, y'all need to be white folk.
Who says this? What
You.
other group?
Other groups of people. Wait a minute, are you saying that other
are walking around like, yeah, I'm unapologetically whatever and Christian? Like, who's?
You know what? That's actually a great point you're making. Other groups don't have to do that. It's only when we're talking about Black folk we have to qualify. Well, why do we have to actually
Why?
we have to
Why do you
qualify
have to
our
do
own
this?
existence.
To
Like, this is what we have
who?
to do.
To who?
To you. That's what you don't see the questions you're asking me right now.
You
You're
ain't
asking me.
to me.
Hold on. Hold on. I just want to point something out for a second. You asked me a question about what it means to be unapologetically Black. I answered the question. Then your response to that was, well, is that not what other people mean? Well, yeah. So if that's the case, what's the problem with it?
No, I said other people care about their people, their family members. Other people care about, culture. That's not restricted to just Black people. But Black people, that's not restricted to Black people. So why?
Yeah, but unapologetically Black, just all it means is that I'm not going to be ashamed to say these are my people, this is my heritage, etc., etc. Because you agree, and we've had this conversation before, you agree that it is a cohort of white racists who, every time I bring up racism, you get like this disgust. I know I don't like it either. I don't like racism either. I bring it up and you're like, oh, how dare he bring up racism?
Because you act like it's got, listen, if it ain't a law, it really ain't got nothing to do. It's not if it's not a law, how is it affecting you or me or Black people as a whole? If there is no, I don't understand why we got to be
like,
like,
question, is there law?
All the possible white racists
can I ask the question?
Black racists? You don't want to do this to the Black racists. I understand
that. I understand that. Is there a law? Is there a law about when we're talking about, for example, people transgender kids, right? Are there any laws right now in the books about that? What are the laws? What are the laws?
Well, it depends on what state. So some of them are you can they have agencies where they can literally come and you can bring your child to the state and they can get the surgeries. You can leave one, the child can go to another state and have refugee status basically, and they can get the surgery without their parents' consent. Yes, there are laws, and there are also states and there are laws in other states that say you can't do that. And so there's this big, parents are like, oh my God, I gotta go to Minnesota to get my kid transed, or my kid just went to Minnesota to get trans. So yes, there are laws
So it's
on
not.
the
So
books
it's not. It's
for
not in
this.
every state. It's not in every state, right?
It's not in every state.
Okay. So if you're in a state where it's where there are no laws, right? Does that mean it's wrong if you speak out about it?
I mean, what am I gonna be talking about? Like, if they, well, it's like,
So do you see?
what,
So you see how
what am
this
I
is the
gonna
problem?
be? I'm gonna go
So
down to the school board and tell them to do
no,
what exactly?
no. I
Like
just I
what?
just I just said speak out about it.
No, if there's no law, what am I? Or they're not. If they're not trying to make a law, or if there isn't a law that's already there that needs to be repealed, like what
What
am
if,
I speaking
what about
against
what about if
exactly?
they're talking about making a law?
If they're talking about making a law that would target one specific group of people,
Mhm.
um, yeah, which we have, which you don't like. We have
Yeah,
DEI, affirmative action.
yeah.
So y'all want
I'm
that
not.
stuff
I'm
to
not.
be
I'm.
affirmed.
I have no comment on DEI. I think ultimately
Oh,
though,
okay.
it,
Well,
it,
then,
it
so you don't think that it is okay to have laws for
no,
specific groups of
no.
people?
I just think that if we introduce DEI to the conversation, it's going to go in a completely different direction. I'd rather stay on the book because ultimately, what I understand you saying is that the gentleman is putting forth ideas that don't align with scripture, and you are challenging those ideas. You're speaking back, and you're saying the idea is, well, when he says unapologetically black,
Mm-hmm.
his idea about being unapologetically black is not just skin color, but it's an ideology, and
Mm-hmm.
that ideology clashes with scripture. When I ask you, well, what is that ideology? I'm not getting a clear answer on what it is, and I've told you what it could be, and
I
when I
did
told you
tell you what it is, but then you said, "Well, we don't know if that's what he mean exactly." I said, "Okay, well, tell me some other ways that people use black and
yeah,
blackness."
but I gave you one though.
What?
Did I not give you one?
No. You said,
Okay.
"Oh, caring about your culture or your family." Okay, everybody cares about culture and family.
Right.
That's not
Okay. So
specific
if
to black.
everybody, so if, let's hear what you said though. If everyone cares about it, what's wrong with him caring about it? What's wrong with him saying, "Hey, I care about
He's
my
not
people"?
talking about America. He's talking about black, which is
Yes, he.
something else.
I think he's talking about Black Americans. I'm almost sure that's what he's talking about.
He's not even American. He's from London.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty. Does he live in America now?
He lives here now, but I'm saying like this,
Okay.
he's like our people were oppressed. It's like
I haven't heard him. Okay, again, but we've already concluded that if what he's
he was
saying,
just
if
on Tim Ross's podcast. It's a long podcast. Go watch it.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's problematic if he's taking blackness and creating this oppressed category group of individuals. Anybody that's black is oppressed, and therefore, if they are oppressed, God is on their side and God fights for them, and they are infallible.
He's
Um,
not saying I haven't read the entire book. I just got it today, literally. But as I'm skimming through it, I don't get the vibe that he's explicitly saying that. That's why I'm saying you probably weren't watching them, but this is a softened black power. It's not overt. It's not in your face. Black power. Jesus is black. He's not saying that. He
okay.
is, however, he's weaving the same Marxist strand into he didn't create this. He's expanding the idea. He's softening the idea. He's making the idea a little more palatable for us believers who would be like, no, we're not saying Jesus is black.
But I think
We're
your
not going to do
argument.
that.
I think your argument. Sorry, I think your argument will be much stronger if you could actually pinpoint when he says unapologetically black. This is
Mhm.
what he means. Here's the evidence that I have to prove this is what he means. If you could do that, I think your argument would have would have stronger legs here
When you
because then
read the
I would
book,
have to but then I would have to
you can
respond.
deduce what from the statements that I have read, the people that he's quoting.
Yeah,
You
but it
can
doesn't mean just
deduce
because James
that
Cone is quoted, James Cone is not wrong on everything he says. He makes some good
he's
points.
not okay. Well, James
You agree?
Cone,
You agree with
how
that? You
he's
agree?
using,
I know you're going to say that because you think James Cone is the devil, right? But there are
I don't think you're
areas of
going,
James.
if you get to heaven, I don't think you're going to see James Cone, okay?
Okay, that's fine, but it
I'm
doesn't
just
mean
saying.
that everything he said was untrue, right?
Okay, and
Yeah.
but if I'm not going to be sitting here trying, okay, if
And
I
I
am
don't think that's
true,
fair because
let me
that's
say this.
guilt by
Let me say,
association as well.
no. If I am truly trying, because this is his book, the gospel and my black skin. Oh, I can be both, and we need to reconcile, and we need to come together, and we're just, it's the unity in Christ. And then why the freak would you be bringing up a James Cone? Because James Cone is totally outside of that of a flat-footed Christian plain reading of the text theology. If you were just going to read the Bible and take at his word, just Orthodox Christianity, James Cone does not fall in there. None of the people that I have seen him quote the Cone and he's Cornell West so is promoting the book. Yo, the dude is a the dude is a Marxist.
Hey, listen, I think that anytime if we're going to be quoting Cone, I'm going to look at I'm going to look at I'm going to have my eyebrows raised, right? I'm going to be curious. Okay, what's going on here? But I don't think that it's automatically some sort of indictment if you quote Cone, or I don't think that it is an endorsement of all of Cone's theology. I
That's
think
why I
that you
bought
could.
the book, because I heard
Okay,
him
I mean, you
saying
did
little
buy the book,
things
so
here
sure. I
and
mean,
there, and I'm
yeah.
like, okay, well, let me see it. Let me test my hypothesis. I'm thinking this dude sounds like he's on some Black liberation social gospel stuff. So let me buy the book. Let me reserve
So
my comment.
let me
And
ask you
so
a
when
question.
I bought the book and
Okay,
I'm reading through, and I'm like, yeah, oh, this dude is straight up woke. This is Marxist talk. It's the same thing. It's just the edges are a little bit softer. It's not so explicit. That's the difference.
yeah, I
That
think
is
sometimes
actually that's a communist tactic, actually.
yeah, I think sometimes you guys can be very quick with the trigger when it comes to Marxism. It's like you see somebody talk about oppression. Oh, Marxist! Look, he's Marxism. It's like I actually have to see it. I'm not going to just throw them because for me that actually carries a little bit of weight. But I'm gonna call somebody a Marxist. It's like I'm marking you, brother. It's like you have a different worldview that is not compatible with Christianity.
You
So
know what? I think if you studied Marxism and communism a little bit more, and if you saw how they moved in the civil rights movement, in the Black Power
I
movement,
know they're
in
very
the
covert. They're hot. I know
okay,
this is
so
the
I
whole.
mean,
I know,
this
but
is
this is
how
the whole.
they
I know, but this is
roll.
the argument that people like Chad. What's his name? Chad O. Jackson. He makes this argument, right? He says, oh well, they are covert communists, and it's like, okay, if that is the case, if they are covert communists, and you got to read, you got to look, you got to, you got to. They're connected to this person that's connected to this person, and then that person's mom was a communist. So it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, because that's what he'll do. He'll be like, well, King never said nothing, but the person that King was associated with, their mom was a communist. That's what he does. It's so funny. So my point
No,
is, if
first of
that's the
all,
methodology, then I'm
no,
going to
you
reject that.
are
I'm going to. You have to
you
show me
are misrepresenting
explicitly or
Shadow Jackson.
implicitly how,
You are
in a person's
misrepresenting
writing
him.
or their speech how they're communist, not by guilt by association.
Aaron, you are misrepresenting. Shadow Jackson is a friend of mine, number one. And number two,
Yeah.
I've read and I've actually worked with him. He has never been like, oh, some person far removed. Oh, look at them. They were attached to Martin Luther King, therefore Martin. No, he always backs up what he's saying with facts, with Martin Luther King's own writings. His own words convict him. He
Yeah,
don't need
but
no
he hold on. That's not true. That's not true because in his debate with I forgot the brother's name on Jason Whitlock's channel, when he was actually pressed here about the actual statements of Martin Luther King condemning Marxism, right? Saying it's not compatible with Christianity. Do you remember what his response was?
No.
Okay, so his response was, well, I don't think Martin Luther King was a Christian anyway, so I don't care that he said it's not compatible with Christianity because he's not a Christian. So I don't even take the fact that he said it's not compatible with Christianity. I don't take that seriously because I don't believe he was a Christian.
He wasn't a
Even
Christian.
in the reason he's saying that is because he knows Martin Luther King's own word contradict what he says.
Listen, you know, maybe I can get Chad on one day and y'all can duke it out if you want to. But my point is that this particular guy and many others that are around this whole new Marxist it's this new Black Power, you know, low key thing that's coming up in the quote unquote Black church.
Ain't nobody in the church talking about no Black Power. And if we're talking about Black Power, I promise they don't mean what you think they mean by it. Again, here's my problem though. My problem is if sorry, I heard my son crying. I probably need to get ready to go soon.
Yes, no, I was actually getting ready to say that.
Yeah,
So we'll have
he's up there
I'll
crying. Yeah.
okay. Well, I will have to I'll be back on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, everyone. Aaron, I'll go ahead and drop you down. Thanks for coming on. I always
Absolutely.
love
Have a good
talking
one.
to
Thank you for
you.
bringing me
Thank
up.
you. God bless you.
Hey, what's wrong with the baby?
All right, you guys. Yes, another one. This was awesome. Awesome. I hope, you know, I wish people would come on earlier. I wish we would come on earlier. Guys, thanks for hanging in there with me. Katie, thank you. Thank you. Karen, thank you guys for sticking with me. Megan, you guys, thank you. Thank you. Let's see who I know Paul went and everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Look, the makeup's running, eyes red and watering. It's time to go. This was good though. I feel like we've made a little bit of headway with Aaron. I feel like we've made a little bit of headway, but we got a lot of work to do, don't we? Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you all for supporting the channel. I will see you on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got a lot of work, but we're going to keep on working. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Bye.